Hey everybody, welcome to Hash Church, episode 49. And I'm going to send out the links. As always, I'll try and wait for the stream to start so I can mute out my voice that's going to be coming through the secondary YouTube chat. Just send that off real quick. I hope everyone's doing really nice this morning. I am here live from Creekside, Whistler, British Columbia. Always enjoy my time up in Whistler, British Columbia. It was a couple of last rainy days, but luckily High Integrity Glass Art was up here for a few days as well, so I got to go check out him with some of his new glass. He had, he had the new Coyote piece. He had his FTK from Scott Deppy and the Mothership crew, all, done up super unbelievable. Marbles and colors and hopefully we're going to see him at one point today, dropping by my room here for a little bit of a session. I got to see Phil, our friend from, he was from True Genetics, he was from Saka Genetics, and now I believe he's doing solventless consulting for a new crew, and I got to give it up to him. He is making the fire. This right here, which is not rosin, it is not oil. This is some 73 micron Bubba Kush. Really stable, really impressed with this particular job that Phil did, so I got to give him a shout out, and hopefully he will come into the room today. And of course, as always, first in the room is my good friend Etienne. How are you, my friend?
I am good, sir. How are you?
Let me get my power on so I can hear you, brother. There you
Where
go.
Are you reporting from, sir?
I am in beautiful Whistler, British Columbia today. I am up at I'm in the Creekside.
Nice. Is it hazy there due to the fires?
You know what? We did have a fire here yesterday. I remember a woman at the restaurant that I was at yesterday morning, a local diner called the Southside Diner. She said her house almost caught fire because the fires were right next to her house. I'm not sure if those fires were in the forest or if they were other houses that have caught fire, but it hasn't been very hazy at all. It's a little bit West Coast style right now with the rains and the clouds down low, but not the fire haze that we're used to these most summers that we get, probably like you guys.
Yeah, if here on the coast in California, it's not so bad, but when we were on our summer trip, when we got over to Yellowstone and Grand Tetons, the haze was so bad. It only got worse and worse and worse until we completely got to the coast again in California, because there's just so many forest fires that are burning. It's just so much air pollution that I see there's now warnings all throughout the west, the western part of the United States heading east because there's so much smoke. So I figured maybe that might unfortunately be happening in your direction. So I'm glad to hear that's not.
Absolutely, and props to Jeff Church for coming in and muting his mic like the second he came in. That's the type of shit that I appreciate more than you can possibly imagine. So I want to welcome the Cannabis Reverend into the house today. Mr. Jeff, how you doing, buddy?
Good morning, everybody. Yeah, I'm in the lab. It's a little bit noisy here. Got the machine running, so figured I'd hit the mute right away.
Well, we appreciate it, We definitely appreciate it. We got a whack schwack of people in the YouTube chat. I guess there's almost 300 people in there, and they're chatting up. And I just wanted to say hello to some of them. Silly Simon and Taste Bud and Rusty, 70s Mama. She's a regular in there. Adam Sieves, Red Lion, Brad Richardson. All of you guys and girls, thank you for coming and sharing your time with us this wonderful Sunday afternoon. We'll see who shows up today. I sent out a bunch of different links this morning, but talk to Horatio. Unfortunately, Horatio is in a power outage right now, so he is probably not going to be making it on. He doesn't have the power. He doesn't have the internet, so we'll miss you today, Horatio, but we will make sure that we cover some great topics that you would appreciate. And Jeff's doing it at the lab. That's it.
I was going to ask.
We got some
other ask Jeff, what's he making there? But I think he's out of listening distance.
He's definitely got his CO2 machine running. And he's clubbed up.
I'm working on the distillation process right now, getting some CO2 broken down into some ethanol, and on the other side over here, I've got the machine running.
All right, so you're
What
cleaning
variety
out
are you
any
running?
type of... Sorry? Go ahead, Jeff.
I said, what variety are you running?
Let's see. Today we've got some LA Confidential that we're running this morning. I guess that's the third or fourth batch of the same material we've got running in the machine. And then, other than that, I was filling some Euphoria into cartridges a little bit earlier.
Excellent. Well, it's always nice to see people mixing up the medicine, because we know how important that medicine is, as you guys have heard right here on Hash Church. Quite a bit of incredible information over the course of the last 49 weeks. I mean, talk about, I knew I was an extractor, but I never knew that I could extract information out of the community like I have with this Hash Church in the last 1 year. Holy smokes, guys. It's been incredible. Some really top quality information. It feels like we've been harvesting 90 micron and 120 micron and 73 micron out of all the different things that we've talked about over the course of the last year. It's been pretty pimp.
It's been amazing, just the diversity of people you've been able to call, as well as the different people who have come through. How many different patients have we heard amazing stories from all the way around, you know? It's been a beautiful experience for me, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of it, because it's been a humbling opportunity to share, as well as, more than anything, to learn.
Well, you know what? You've been a wonderful part of it, Etienne, and I'm glad, once again, you know, Todd bringing in the good folks. I never know, really, you know, like this really, it's not like I just knew exactly who I needed in here. What I really had to do was I just kind of had to invite people in and see how they performed, and eventually we kind of came together with our little core group, and it's just been wonderful. Welcome, Mr. Scialdone.
Hey, Mark.
Mark is in the house holding molecules made out of berries and some other sort of thing. I guess he's out and he's back. We haven't seen Mark for a week or two. He's been out fishing.
Yeah, hardcore, man. He's been out touring. It's like the old school Dead shows. And wait, aren't they? Isn't it like a Dead and Friends now? They're going to be doing fall tour.
Yeah, something along those lines. I haven't heard the exact accurate information about that, but I did hear that right afterwards they were going to do some other, you know, I don't think it involves Phil, because I believe Phil and Friends is doing his own little tour at the time, so he was unable
to. Everyone but Phil. Phil's doing his own thing. But I saw dates for the end of the year here in the Bay Area. I saw that for sure, because I won't be around for it, but I know my friends will be going nuts, and Mark will probably be out here for it. Won't you, Mark?
Mark me?
Mark you.
Yes, Mark me. I figured you'd be. We were talking about the Dead shows. Well, not the Dead shows, but everyone but Phil shows coming up at the end of the year.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'll be going to those fish shows at the end of the year, and not the Dead shows. Probably.
Oh yeah.
Fish has got my concert-going dollar right now at this point.
They really do. Fish is on the ball.
They certainly are. It was a great festival they had last week, Mark. Unbelievable. It was really good.
The Magna Ball.
Yes, Magna Ball was a lot of fun.
That's awesome. That's wonderful to hear. I once again, of course, wish that I could go, but I cannot, so I will sit here at Hash Church and smoke ridiculous full millet Bubba Kush resin that looks like rosin, but it's bubble hash.
Wow, that is beautiful. I take it you made that, sir.
That's looking really
No,
nice.
I'd love to say that I did, but it was a good friend and an ambassador who's come in to Hash Church on a multitude of occasions. He always comes in late because he suffers from cluster migraine headaches, my good friend Phil. He showed up yesterday. He dropped off this little tiny piece, and I'm telling you, I woke up this morning and my whole room smelled like Bubba Kush. So thank you, Phil. Good job on the solventless extraction. It's, you know, it's hash like this that had Matt the Great Gardener, when we first started doing the rosin, he would be like, well, why don't you just grow the herb good enough so you don't have to squeeze the resin out of the shitty herb or hash? And he did have something of accuracy there, because with all the wonderful things that rosin can do, I'll tell you, when you get yourself a product of hash like this from dry sifting or wet washing, you really have already acquired what you're trying to do, you know, and it's, I'm going to have a nice little rip of it right now. Well, Aaron says no church for him today. That's okay. No DNA in the house today. Those guys are busy. It's nice that they can spend the time that they can when they're able to make it, but totally understand when they can't. We'll hold the room down with 419 viewers. We just need one more. Oh, 429. Damn, that jumped fast. Thought we'd kind of go up to 420 there, but all right. I'm just going to hit the rip at the closest to. It's 424 now, so good morning, everyone. And as Rob Clark would say, it's time to blow smoke rings at the Vatican. Here we go.
Well, Mark, it's a credit to you and what you've been able to also bring together because of your knowledge. Is a reason why 400 and something people are awake. Pardon me, at this time of the morning, every morning, on Sundays, and that you have almost 10,000 watchers a week on the show is because you're putting out knowledge and information that no one can find anywhere. The biggest problem we've had.
Go ahead.
The biggest problem we've always had has been misinformation, from too much information from the Ed Rosenthal books, which were just filled with just too much stuff, not enough information. And here we actually are speaking about real-world information. Hey, Todd, welcome.
Hi, everybody.
Welcome, welcome, Todd. How are you doing this fine early evening?
Evening in Europe. It's great. Good morning, everybody, from 6 p.m. I've been
That's
good.
awesome. You know, I saw you posting pictures like hours ago, and I was like, what the hell is he doing up? Oh, I figured it out.
He is. Let me tell you. No. So how y'all doing?
Good.
Good. You
Better than
blinked
your,
Hey,
apparently.
hey, I got a special guest for us today.
Oh, who's
Who is
that?
Yeah, what's going down? Where does Mark go? What is happening? I think we have a technical glitch, guys.
Yeah, he keeps,
You're cutting out a little bit on your internet, but we did hear that you said you had a special
both have
guest.
not so great internet connections. I found that out when I was traveling in the hotel room, is that I was always having problems of cutting in and cutting out.
I didn't seem to be having a problem until Todd seems to be cutting out. Am I also cutting out, guys?
You were. Now you're not. Now you're stable.
Yeah, everybody
All
seems
right.
to be stable now when they speak.
I just keep getting drop boxes from Mark. My phone's like boo-doo-doo, boo-doo-doo, boo-doo-doo.
That's funny.
So, Todd, who did you bring in today?
Ben Dronkers.
Mr. Sensi Seed Bank himself?
Yeah, Sensi Smile, first coffee shop in Rotterdam, followed by one of the first seed bank in the world, really, Sensi Seeds. First to call himself a seed bank by far. And then that was followed by the museums, the hash marijuana museums, which we all affectionately love so much. He now has 3, 2 in Amsterdam, 1 in Barcelona. And then that was followed by him reading The Emperor Wears No Clothes and having an inspiring conversation with Jack Herer. And he felt like, if hemp is so good, why is nobody doing it? So he did it, and he launched Hemp Flax in the early 90s. And now HempFlax is one of the world's largest hemp companies. They have over 2,000 hectares in the ground this summer, and they are growing all the fiber and cellulose. The fiber is going directly into the door panels in products like Mercedes, BMW, Jaguar, Bugatti. Bugatti has his hemp in it. Pretty crazy.
That's
My
completely
Audi has
crazy.
his hemp in it.
I'm going to go get something to drink lighter, so why don't you guys talk for a minute?
Absolutely. Always impressed to have Ben Dronkers come share some time with us. He, you know, he's one of the people early on in the industry, like in the early 90s. I think I was out in like Germany, mid-90s actually. Germany in Dortmund, Germany. There was a cannabis show that happened back there. I can't remember if it started in 96 or 97 or 98, but it went all the way through to 01 or 02 before it started moving around Germany and ended up in Berlin and some other places. But I'll never forget seeing back in that day, it was the 90s for sure, Ben Dronkers rolling up in the 500 SL, you know, dressed to the tits. Everyone else pretty much potentiating the type of the stoner, still kind of caught up in the potentiation of the stoner stereotype. And they're promoting kind of what I just promote lately, which is the normalization of cannabis. There's Ben dressed to the tits in a beautiful suit and driving up in a beautiful, and just looking like a classy guy. I appreciated just that alone, that he refused to try and fit. It was all back then. I tell you, a lot of people definitely potentiating the stereotype of the stoner.
Ben has always been the consummate professional. I mean, representing himself always. I mean, I remember my first cannabis cup in '95, and I got married there at the cup, and he invited my then wife and I to the cannabis castle, and we got to, you know, be guests, have dinner, go through. It was with Jack Herrera, which is hilarious because, you know, he was at our wedding. Todd was my best man in my wedding. So it was crazy time. And just how humble, how nice he was, how kind, how gracious. But on top of that, how successful. I mean, back then, no one had a catalog like Sensi Seeds. Holy shit, no one at all had, I mean, how many award-winning strains? I mean, he was the first. He was, I mean, the leader. He was the one leading everybody along the way, like, oh, this is how it's done, people. And today, still with HempFlax and everything, he's still the world leader. And to maintain that for 30-plus years just shows, one, the team that he has in place, the professionalism he's been able to exude, but he also operated at a loss for almost 2 decades just to carry HempFlax forward. I mean, if you think about what that would take of any business, and how many of us here are business people, businessmen, right? We have our own businesses. Can you imagine operating at a loss for almost 18 years? That is beyond unheard of. And the respect is huge and immense for a man who can carry that to where now, I mean, his hemp is in everything. Like I said, my car has his hemp in it right now. So he didn't sit there and tout himself and go around, oh, me, 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 me. Ben's been quietly doing this shit all along, people. I mean, he's been leading us all along the way and showing us how it's done. We just haven't been paying attention so much.
Yeah,
Is the museum's
I'm
amazing.
back, and I'm sorry if I'm lagging. I guess I am. This is going to just be a shitty church for me. I'm sorry, guys. Bummer internet connection for me.
Just don't pop in real quick. If you
I'll just be quiet.
Just come in and speak consistently, it comes over. So you're doing great, Marcus.
Yeah, how long I'll be a connection like this. It's but I'm not too sure how long. I can't make almost anything out that you down, because usually I have many things open. Not paying attention to the YouTube chat. If anyone wants to, no, there's no plug-in at this hotel, Todd. Unfortunately, it's all wireless and so it's unfortunate. I'll see what I can do. I'll just kind of be talk, and maybe it'll still record a nice connection.
People seem to be getting a good, people are watching this, so it seems to be coming through. I haven't seen anybody saying no, so,
Nobody's talking.
Can you hear me, Mark? Yeah. Mr. Scialdone, anything new in the world of science?
Sorry, I had my mute on. Yes, I can hear you just fine. Anything new in the world of cannabis science? Let's see. Not really. Cannabis is known to be a very medicinally active plant. That's already known. I guess what we keep on finding out more and more is that that its effects on people is no longer anecdotal, and it does have a beneficial effect. And we're now finding the biochemistry and the biochemical mechanisms that underpin why these molecules work. So yeah, there's more and more evidence every day that these receptors mitigate all kinds of biological disease states. So there's no wonder that these we're hearing about stories about tumors going away or seizures being completely reduced to the point where having any seizures anymore without the dreaded effects of medications that just basically cut off the nerve endings and turn the patient into a walking vegetable. So there's some discussion on the Facebook page this week around juicing and whether or not that's still going to provide a positive result. And unfortunately, if you're taking in cannabinoids into your body, yeah, they are going to be eliminated through your urine, because your urine is basically what's coming out of your blood. So if they're in your bloodstream, they're going to be in your urine, and they will show up as a positive result, even though you're not gaining from the psychological or psychotropic effect of the cannabinoids. They're still in your system, and it's still going to be metabolized and degraded and detected in a urine test.
Anybody hear about anything from the Michigan Cup? I really haven't heard that much about the Michigan Cannabis Cup that just happened.
Looked like the nut.
Jeff, were you going to say something?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I got nothing. Yeah, Michigan Cannabis Cup, I really haven't even been following what's going on out there at all. Saw a couple pictures pop up through Instagram, but that's about it. Just wishing we had a Seattle Cup coming up here or a Portland Cup, but both of those got postponed or canceled this year. So.
Really? They canceled both of them? I heard about the Portland one.
Well, the Seattle one, they claimed that the legislation that was passed here in Washington, 502 is what they claimed in this article, but really it's 5052 and 502. There's always been this law in Washington State that makes it illegal for you to pass a joint to anybody else, to pass any cannabis at all. We legalized cannabis, and we didn't legalize the ability to pass it. And so what was happening was all these people were, giving out free samples and things like that at the cup. And even if it was to just med patients, it was kind of a gray area, and the authorities just basically said, hey, no, we're not going to allow this to happen. So Seattle, Washington State, no more High Times Cup, and I don't know exactly what happened in Portland, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a shame, but somebody will fill that void. So Todd, what's going on over there in Europe? Anything new and interesting?
Well, wow, where to start? Yeah, a lot of very interesting stuff's going on. We're in the middle of hemp harvest season right now, and one of the interesting things was we went to the supermarket yesterday, and Ben found his hemp in the largest supermarket chain in Holland growing as a matting for sprouts. It's really quite amazing. I posted a photo on it on Instagram, and it's, what's nice about it, it's a mainstream product heading into supermarkets, and it's hemp, and feels like we're winning, if that makes sense.
Did Ben hear about Manitoba Harvest selling for $133 million?
Oh yeah, oh yeah, oh yeah. He heard that for sure. Yeah. And their number one product is what? Is hemp protein, right?
I think they ended up coming out with, yeah, probably hemp protein is number one, but hemp milk, I remember back in the day, was going to be the one that they said, if we can get this hemp milk thing happening, we should be able to, really move the company for a good amount of money, because it was usually milk companies like Unilever and like other big companies like that were looking at the hemp milk market, because it's going to be obviously at least as big as almond milk, and that became quite a big market.
You're absolutely right. We have it at Whole Foods in California commonly. We got a chocolate, vanilla, and regular. And I forget what the brand name of it is, but
There's multiple brand names now. That's the thing, is that people found what Manitoba was doing and did it better.
Yeah, that's what competition's all about right there, You inspire your competition to outdo you. If you don't yourself have the ability to make something better, but you have this great product and you put it out in the world, and then your competition is like, wow, that's a great product, but it could be better, and they tweak it a little bit, and you look and you see, wow, this product has been made better. Well, this is how competition works. This is why competition is healthy for the end user, because they end up with a better thing. It's not about, oh, that was my idea and only I'm allowed to do it. No one's allowed to make it better. It has to stay the way it is, just the way I invented it. That's just not the way the world works. I thank God.
No, it's all about sharing.
The products evolve so much better as well. Remember, the first hemp milk wasn't that great, but today it's a consumer market, but also the consumer has responded to it, is because, hey, give thanks to Jack Herrera and all those back in the day for going out and spreading the word so people know what hemp is to actually ingest it. But
straight up.
Buy it, they're buying it off the shelf in droves, so that there are multiple varieties on our shelves in multiple flavors to choose from.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty awesome in its own right.
I'd like to give a shout out to Alan Brady. Alan Brady, back in the 90s, he was some dude from California, and I think he went by Dr. Alan Brady, did he not?
Yes, because he was a nutritionist.
Right, exactly. We flew him out to a hemp field in Manitoba to serve hemp ice cream, his Dr. Brady's hemp ice cream, to all of our sort of dignitaries that we invited to this hemp event that we threw. This was after we had imported low THC hemp seed from the Ukraine to grow in Manitoba, and it was an interesting situation how it all happened, but Holland was involved as well, because we bought or rented, I can't remember if it was a purchase or a lease, but we flew a machine over, a harvester, that big crazy Dutch harvester with the two big wheels on the front. It was incredible to watch the guy harvest just 5 acres. We had never seen anything like it. It happened so fast. It was like, that thing was like a race car. Good times.
Yeah, so he separated he crushed the hemp seeds, and then he took the hearts and then he froze them and made them into it was a very kind of a little crispy ice cream, but that stuff was amazing. He used to go to all the events back in the 90s, and that's how I met him, because I was working for Steve Angelo's company, Evolution, and so every event all around the country would go to, there would be, Alan Brady with his hemp ice cream giving everybody samples, so everybody got to taste it. Once they tasted it, we gave it was flavorful. It still tasted like hemp, but it still gave people an opportunity to, ingest it in a way that was different from any way they had seen it prior.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, people were impressed. Even, keep in mind, this was 20 plus years ago now. That's pretty wild to think about, that it sort of was a long, slow journey to get to this mainstream, which is really all we want. We want in. We want to stop being put at the kiddie table. We want in. Us in. There's no reason to keep us out. We're your brothers and sisters and fathers and uncles and mothers and grandmas. We're everywhere. We are the enjoyer of the cannabis plant. Don't try to get rid of us.
But that's what Ben's been proving all along, that it can be done, and that it can be done responsibly and intelligently, and not. I mean, he's not just in the Netherlands, correct? Todd, he's growing hemp all over Europe right now, as well as factories.
I believe HempFlax, it spans 3 countries. Holland and Germany were the 2 first countries because they share farms on the border and a processing facility. And now he just moved into Romania, and he is expanding HempFlax as the demand increases. And then
I would only add that he also does it with panache. Panache.
Dude, his
Class
is unmatched. The museum in Barcelona, I think, is the crown jewel of all cannabis collections, to be truthful.
I think that that's an understatement, to say the least.
Which hash church was that? Because that was one of my first, and I have to say that was amazing to just be sitting in there, 1, and 2, that we were allowed to smoke in there was 2 amazing. Because if you realize what that collection in there is and is worth, that's amazing.
Yeah, it was an incredible experience to, I mean, for many years I've heard and seen parts of what he's collected, but to see it all done in such an incredible fashion, in such a beautiful building, in such a beautiful country, it was all around, the hair on my arms were standing up in most of the rooms.
Welcome, Ben.
Hey, nice to see you guys.
So do you know everybody, Mark? Ben, this is my friend Mark. Bubbleman makes the bubble bags, you know, of course. Etienne, you know, from forever ago, yeah. And this is my friend Mark and Jeff.
Hey, Mark.
Having stone
Hey,
moment,
guys.
Jeff.
Good to see you.
Yes, welcome, Ben. Good to see you as well. It's an absolute honor to have you on Hash Church, and we were just sort of talking a little bit about the impact that you've on our industry over the last 30-plus years here.
I'm sorry, the line was not good for a minute.
Oh, just welcoming you and letting you know that it's an honor to have you here in Hash Church.
You know, Ben, when did you start growing?
Wow, that's a long time ago. And we did it on a zolder, you know, the typical Dutch houses.
Yeah.
With a teepee of neon tubes.
Really?
Yeah.
Neon light grows cannabis?
Yeah, it grows.
It did.
Yeah.
For like fluorescent tubes in a way.
Yeah.
One of the first fluorescent tubes.
Yeah.
And neon lights. I never even thought about that.
Ben, what was one of the first strains that you can remember growing specifically?
Well, the first strains, that we call it spinach, it was the Dutch hemp, you know, from Kees Hoeke and the guys in Amsterdam who had started to sell hemp seeds and even small clones for $1 each. And so we had some of those, you know, and it was just for fun in the first place. And then later on my trip to Afghanistan and Pakistan and places, I started to collect the seeds, and I brought the seeds, and then we grow the same thing, you know, but then actually it was a year later, it was really grass. You really get high. The first things, it was like a hemp variety. You didn't get stoned. We had small buds, and right away also we get, you know, in a greenhouse, and everything worked better. We blinded it with plastic, black plastic.
Wow, blackout greenhouses back then?
Yeah. There was a lot of work because we, you know,
Manual.
by hand.
They have that automated now. Really nice, yeah.
We had it automated later on also, but in the first few days we had to every night we go and every morning we go open it again.
Wow.
It was fun.
And Sensi Smile, your coffee shop, is the first one in Rotterdam?
That was the first coffee shop in Rotterdam.
Wow.
It was fun.
Do you remember when you started that?
Well, I had enough grass, you know, and I was angry that because in Amsterdam had coffee shops legally, and in Utrecht, another city in Holland, they had coffee shop legally, and not in Rotterdam. And Rotterdam is the second biggest city from
Amsterdam.
Holland. So I disagree. So I opened the coffee shop and I put a big marijuana leaf on the window, and we on the highway sort of through Rotterdam. So it was really, people saw it. And the funny thing is that the cops informed the journalists they're going to raid it. So right away in the newspaper, you see cops scratching the marijuana leaf of the window, But in the article, it mentioned where it is, the address, and everything. And I mentioned I opened again. And we had lines of people, and they buzzed me many times. They arrested me many times in those days.
I asked, how many times do you remember you've been arrested?
Over 80 times. I lost count. But it was sometimes just you go in the bus. They bring you to the police station, and hey, you go.
Yeah.
Many times, like where you just took my grass and brought me to the police station, and sometimes they make a paperwork. Most of the time,
they just take it. We experience that now in America. We call them smash and grabs. Even Etienne, one of his places in LA, they came in September of �06, I think, and just took everything, broke the glass doors, took it all, left.
Yeah, they like to smoke, I think.
So some police in southern Los Angeles, Santa Ana, were caught after they raided the place, taking the edibles because there was hidden cameras, and they didn't know they were on camera, stealing the evidence and eating it and getting high. Hypocrites. Yeah. Ben, I interviewed you 20 years ago, and you made a comment that you did what you were doing with hemp and everything because you did not want to be a hypocrite fighting hypocrisy. And I thought in that moment you summed up so much of our struggle, and we fight a lot of hypocrisy in the way they treat us against alcohol or tobacco or some of these similar substances. We send kids into convenience stores and they're surrounded by adult use items, cars have gas that the kids can't buy, and knives they can't buy, and beer they can't buy, and liquor and porn and tobacco. But the kids grow up okay, but cannabis is always this, no, it'll fuck up the children. And the truth is it won't fuck up the children. You have a family running your business now, don't you?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're all dope heads.
They're all stoners, yes. Dope heads, I love it. What got you into the seed bank? I mean, obviously you had a coffee shop and you're growing weed. Is just the seed bank a natural extension?
Well, I grow, like I said, I grow beautiful grass. Already was in the greenhouses, and then because of they bust me so many times, I really studied the law. And then I read one particular thing. It was every part of the plant is forbidden except the seeds. So if the seeds are accepted,
legal or exempted.
Exempted. So then I should be able to grow it. So I looked at the agricultural law, and there it was. The seeds. No problem. So I went to a bloody expensive lawyer who is a specialist in agricultural rules and regulations, and I said, I think I can grow legal seeds. And he's saying, well, you paid me 6,000 gulden at that time. It was a lot of money. And he, for one consult. And the next week I came back. He said, "You're right. I think you're right. You can grow seeds." So then, because I had coffee shops and I worked already with the seeds, with Neville, then I started the first seed shop in Amsterdam. There was no seed shop. Right. And then I started to work more close with Neville, exchanging varieties, my Afghans and his varieties. So that's how we worked together in the first place for a couple of years, and then Neville wanted to go back to Australia.
Yeah.
And just totally, and he wanted to sell the business to me. We didn't come to an agreement, but he went to Australia, and then he was busted there because of America,
wanting him for seeds.
Wanted him.
Yeah.
And so then he asked me again if I wanted to take over and took over his business.
And right, the rest is history in a way. But you mentioned Afghan. I mean, a lot of us smoke Afghan, and we know what it looks like. But you actually went to Afghanistan to get your seed stock.
Yeah, many times.
Many times.
Yeah. Yeah, it was nice. You had the Mujahideen, supported by the U.S., and you had the Taliban but they were a small group, also supported against the Russians.
Right.
And and I was especially, I took the seeds from the farmers already, but I hear it was in the mountains there were also some seeds. And I really went into the mountains to find the wild seeds. And there's all over the place.
Really.
And that was
The Hindu Kush Mountains, literally.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Did you travel further into India and collect further down?
In India I went also, but I had friends also that brought seeds from there, from several places. But my particular thing was like Turkey. I took some interesting things from Turkey, Lebanon, Morocco. But mainly I was with the Afghans, the Pakistanis.
It's remarkable for me to have this conversation because we got a lot of seed companies these days that are 10 years old, and they're mixing together your old hybrids to a large degree, and they're acting like they're reinventing the wheel. And to listen to you talk about going to Turkey and Afghanistan and India and the Hindu Kush Mountains to collect the seeds that are part of the seed bank, it's amazing.
Yeah, well, it was quite a job, and many times disappointing. It come out and it's not much.
Nothing there. Yeah, you don't get shit from it.
On this moment, I do the same with we got about 400 varieties coming. We got 200 already in. All from the Ukraine, Russia, the whole eastern part of Europe.
Right.
And I hope we're going to get something from there as well.
Right.
So it's not strain hunting, but collecting.
Yeah.
And it's collecting is like the Vavilov Institute in Russia.
Yes.
They're doing that, so we got seeds from there. It look like it's already probably disappearing. So it's interesting to look to strains and varieties, but to see what's happening, what's there. And our varieties, as you know, we keep them alive already.
30 years. Yeah.
So that's interesting. The same varieties we work with.
Right. Yeah. There's been a consistency to your product for a long time.
Yeah. And we didn't do much new varieties for quite some time because of regulations and all.
Right. Wow.
I have a question, Todd.
Go ahead.
I was wondering what year these travels started for Ben. What year he started traveling into Afghanistan?
Around 1970, I think. 1970, 71 maybe. I think like that. 70, yeah, something like that. Maybe he did.
Nice.
So that was a long road to growing and cultivating. You advertised it since he started in 1985, but I was born in 1970, and I was waiting for my first car in 1985, so I remember how long my life felt at age 16, 15, and that's how long you were practicing before you actually opened the seed bank, collecting seeds.
I had a boutique, I did textile as well, and I brought that from Pakistan,
right.
Even from Dubai.
Right, back in the day.
They were also one of the reasons I traveled. And then I go for the hands.
Your body is now toxic in Dubai.
Probably.
Not teasing, of course. Yeah, but this is fantastic. You've always encompassed the kind of a whole cannabis, you looked at the whole thing. I mean, I know of no other cannabis entrepreneurs that moved into history and opened up not one museum, but a hemp museum, but then a third museum. And, your passion for the whole picture, it's hard not to miss. It's obvious. And, where do you see things going?
It's a bloody difficult question. It's a very difficult question.
One more than how do you feel about the advancements that we're seeing in America? Because a lot of the educational efforts that you and people like you named Jack Herod.
Well, let's see that we see that time stood still for 75 years. There was not much research concerning cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
And now hell break loose, like you guys in America, in Israel, Spain, everywhere. There was a seminar. There's every year a seminar. There's about 700 specialists only concerning CBD.
Right.
They're coming together. I wasn't there, but a friend was. And you can see that how much research is done in the last 10 years.
Compared to the last 75.
Yeah,
it's monumental.
It's incredible, and it will go, of course. It's the magical plant. It is the magical plant concerning medicine for the future, but also concerning the rest of the world, how it look like. You know, we don't need so much aluminium anymore. We don't need so much steel anymore. You know, if you make planes and cars and what they do now, you know, the cars are already dead, made of hemp. Right. The motorbikes here in Holland made of hemp. Right. The plane is, they're working on one plane, I know, also with our fibers from hemp flax. Right. And you know, it's amazing.
There's a very famous Lotus XLIX. Is that's all your fiber?
I'm not sure. That might be fiber from England. We're not sure about it. We're not sure.
Nice. You know, the new thing is obviously CBD. I mean, now that you guys are growing, I mean, how many thousands of hectares do you have growing this season?
I think altogether 1,600 hectares.
Of this season. Yeah. And this is your like 20, over 20 years of growing with hemp flax?
We grow average for the last 20 years, an average of 1,000 hectares all the time. Now we grow up to 2,000. We open a new factory in Romania.
Right. Yeah. It's amazing to me, you know, when I learned that you got your hemp in the Bugatti, you know, the world's most expensive sports car. I thought, how incredible. That's funny, yeah. Hemp is everything. It's everywhere.
But they don't want to
advertise.
They never advertise or say something about it.
Yeah, I've seen the door panels at the museums, and it strikes me as funny that, you know, all these people with their Mercedes Benzes and their BMWs are driving around with hemp right next to their arm. You know. Yeah, and the museums. I mean, what caused you to get into? You now have 3 museums. You easily have the world's largest cannabis collection.
It's 2 museums actually. No, it's
okay.
In Amsterdam, it's in the museum and the gallery. It's one ticket to go.
It's two buildings. Yeah. They could almost be 2 different museums, though. Honestly,
one is the hemp gallery, and the other one is National Marijuana.
Right, but, which was the original one.
Yeah.
It was Hash and Marijuana Museum. Right. And then the more you got into hemp, it expanded into... When I was living here 20 years ago, that building that you inhabit now was the Tattoo Museum. I remember how beautiful it was, and then you took it over and made it even nicer and put my favorite plant in it, so I liked it even more. But I think that's beautiful that you opened up into 2 buildings and made it the same ticket, and just to expand on the education of the experience.
Yeah.
And maybe that's why I see it as 2... and then a 3rd, of course, because the one in Barcelona does encompass both of the vibes of the culture and the history. Yeah. And what got you into Barcelona? I mean, you bought the building in 2000, you opened up in 2012, and only in like 2011 did we start seeing smokers clubs in Barcelona? You were like ahead of the game by like a decade.
Well, but I had some friends, you know, the guys from Cáñamo, the magazine from Spain. They were nice, very nice people, good friends, and we had a lot of Spanish customers. That were mainly the big customers in Spain, Sensi Seed.
Yeah.
And the interesting part in history is that in Amsterdam and around it, there was a lot of hemp in the old days. But in Barcelona and Andalusia around it, there was a lot of hemp also. So and somehow Barcelona and Amsterdam, the people like each other. Like the football club, Barcelona, like the guys from Ajax, because all the famous players and coaches came from Holland who worked with Barcelona. So there's
a camaraderie between cities.
And then my daughter Shanti started to study Spanish there. And I went there 2 times, and it's a beautiful city. And I thought, wow, you know, it would be nice. I had enough stuff to open a new museum.
Yeah.
And it would be nice to make another museum here. So I was just looking for the right spot, the right space, and I found this building, but it was, you know, it needed a restoration. It's going to take years. So every year I put some money in it. Slowly.
12 years later, you finally opened up.
Well, about 10 years, I think, 10 or 9 years later, something like that.
Yeah.
But it took a long time. Yeah, but it's
beautiful.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah, you allowed us to do Hash Church in it. We didn't have the best internet connection, unfortunately, but it was me and Etienne and Mark, and we appreciated that. It was a lot of fun. You even let us do the awards for the Secret Cup last Spanibus.
Yeah, I think they scraped something from the windows now to smoke it.
It was smoking that day. Yeah, we appreciated that too. Yeah, Mark and I were sitting, and Jeff, and we were all pressing rosin. You know, Jeff had his hair straightener going, and we were squishing buds and doing dabs off of fresh cannabis for the first time, and it was actually a great experience. We it classied up the place. It was easily the coolest smokers club in Barcelona that night. We had over 100 people that compete that were there with the competition, and it was a really great time, you know. Anybody, you guys like to ask some questions?
What strain of hemp is your most successful varietal?
The hemp variety, well, we did have good results with the USO. We got it from Professor Boccia from Hungary. We bought it from him, that strain, and the bugger, he sold it right away 2 years later also to the Germans. And Alan was working with it, and he made some very interesting things with it, but somehow we lost it. You know, it happens. In the field, we had a multiplying field, and they harvested seed blown, and it was all, you know, they put it on a pile to its outside, and it was all gone. And even we call it the elite seeds, you know, the small selection we're supposed to have was lost. So, and on this moment, you know, you got the hemp varieties, mainly from the Friends and then the USO, but we multiply it still, but not the special one that Alan did. And now we got about 400 new varieties to test what I got from mainly Russia and the whole Eastern Europe. And I'm very curious for that because I think the hemp varieties came from there.
Are you growing for bast fiber, or are you growing for herds? I guess because, you know, different varietals will, you know, do different things.
Of course, there is some in the yield. You got plants that gives about 22% of fiber, and you got plants that get 30% of fiber. And this is something to look at. But for us, you know, it's always important to have different varieties because also the different time of yielding or harvesting. And this is because we're in Holland, the weather is always unpredictable. So we have some early races and we have some later races. So that's how we choose them now. But we're working on new varieties. They're in test fields now.
What were some of your favorite cannabis varieties? I mean, going back to Sensi, what were some of the strains you enjoyed working with, or some of the country or the origins? When you think of cannabis, do you think Hindu Kush, Turkey, Lebanon, or do you think we think in strain names, and you probably think in countries when you smell things.
Well, my favorite was always hash, you know. You're all smoking dip now, and grass, right? And I just caught my old collection of hash, you know? And it's hard to find some good black Afghani hash because then we're talking about the ensemble, the entourage of this plant. You know, actually the hash is already centuries or ages a dab, you know. You call it a concentration,
yeah, an
extract, and I love it. So it's still my favorite. And then concerning grass, the NL5 haze is nice. You know, the NL5 is always one of my favorites, and the Jack, of course, it's good.
Yeah.
Hey Ben, Chris Bennett here. How you doing?
Hey man, how are you?
Good, good. Hey, have you heard anything new on those gold bowls and cups that showed proof for cannabis residue recently?
No. You know, but I cannot imagine. You know, they say it's bong or what?
They say, well, they were reported as bongs in the press, but the press got it wrong. One newspaper got it wrong, and the rest followed. According to the archaeologists, they were gold bowls and cups used for drinking hayoma. And it had cannabis and opium in it in that case. So kind of fits in with what I've been writing about. But what do you think are the most major archaeological cannabis finds that you can think of?
Ooh, you know, the China one is really
Yeah.
getting because it's all there, right? The shaman and the medicine, the whole thing is there. In that
Yeah.
kind.
Yeah. Great preserved cannabis, like 2 pounds of female, buds, basically.
And there's also one grave found here in Holland. You know that people were buried on a complete bed of hemp.
Wow.
And I'm not
Well, the
sure.
Scythians used cannabis and burial rites, right? So that kind of fits in with that whole Indo-European cannabis burial stuff.
And even the Japanese connect with it, right? Yeah. I don't
Yes.
Yeah, yeah. So it's very interesting. One of the things I collect. How do you call them, no? In front, on top of pharmacies in the old days, they had a head of wood, big like a statue, like that, and then the tongue out, and there's a tablet on it. I don't know how you call them in English, but every pharmacy in Europe had one in the window, or most of the time it was on top of the shop, outside. And it's a head, and the interesting thing is that the figures are always Arabic kind of, Moors, Moors and Arabic kind. And it was in Western, like England, Holland, France, uh, pharmacy shops on top, and that was to show the client that they had this exotic medicine from cannabis. And that I just found that out a week ago.
Yeah, there's a Latin name for a medieval pill made from cannabis. I forget the name of it, but it was famous back in, I think it was like around the 14th, 15th century or something like that. But I'll dig it up. There's like a specific Latin name for this one pill that was mostly containing cannabis that was really quite a popular medicine at the time, What do you think of the stuff about Shakespeare's pipes? That's come up again in the press big time.
Yeah, we had it in the museum, and it's good it's coming in the press again.
Yeah, we brought the Professor Thackeray, the South African professor whose theory it is, out to Vancouver in like 2004, I think, to speak, and I got to hang with him for a while. Pretty interesting stuff, for sure.
Alan had the idea to go to the museums here and get some pipes that we know exactly the dates from, and send them over to the guy, to South Africa, and then see what's in there. Because for sure, at the old paintings, you see all the inns, we call it the inn, right? They're drinking beer and smoking pipes, and then you see the seats on the table. They smoke tobacco like we smoke marijuana now, or hashish.
Yeah.
It was so expensive, so they just put they put hemp and then a bit tobacco in it, like we in the pipe, and like we roll joints, in Europe. We turn it around. Right, we have tobacco and we put some marijuana or hash in it. And in those days, it was the other way around because tobacco was so bloody expensive.
Right,
But
because that makes perfect. It was a new drug from the new country.
They have the knives and they chopped it and mixed it.
Well, the general view is that people didn't even smoke cannabis in pipes or bongs or joints or anything like that until the discovery of New World tobacco smoking. And that, there was burnt as an incense and consumed in other ways, but that pipes and water pipes and that type of stuff came with tobacco, and that people adopted cannabis. So that kind of fits in with that view. And obviously looking for other things to smoke as well, which would have been the case with Shakespeare and the gang, I suppose, if they were using cannabis.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, you should talk to Alan about it, because in Amsterdam there's the pipe museum, pipe tobacco museum. This guy is always no. There was no cannabis smoking before tobacco, and we prove differently.
What's the oldest pipe that you have?
Wow, that's hard to say. To be honest, I have no idea just now. I don't know.
I was going to say you have a few.
I have a few, yeah. So it's hard to say what is the oldest. What is nice, Hans-Joachim Beer, the German guy, the writer. He had some collection pipes from the Tsar, from Russia, who used to be a good hash smoker. He had hash pipes from the Tsar. Golden ones and beautiful ones. I think they're in the Hump Museum in Berlin now.
Wow, cool.
I hope so.
Berlin, you lend that museum?
No. Hans-Joachim Beer was a German.
Oh.
And he gives some to the collection of us, but mainly paperwork, and he's German, so we give the rest of the stuff to Germany.
So it'll stay in Germany, in that museum. That's really great.
Yeah, nice.
How cool is
Nice.
that? Wow.
Nice guy.
Wow.
Well, it's fun. And I'm not sure I talked about it. Yeah, I told already, right? The remedy and the tree.
No, go ahead.
Well, I was talking to Donny Worcester, and he's also having quite a collection of old bottles, right? And what you had was remedy. Hold on, help me. Remedy, a tincture, and elixir, an elixir, right? And the elixir it works for everything. You know, if you drink this, you're going to be powerful. And the quacks sold that, right? And these three things, these three remedies, if you look at the old bottles, all the cannabis bottles, you know, they all worked. You know, the crazy thing is those medicine really worked. You know, the remedies, if you had, because those guys, like we dabbing and we playing with all this modern stuff now with laboratories and stuff, and the old alchemists, you know, they played also around. They make also all kind of stuff. So it's very interesting to see what is in the old bottles, you know, and not only the pipe what people smoke, but what kind of remedies, elixirs. You can imagine, you know, this quack came by in a small town, and you have this elixir, and you drink this, you know, everybody's stoned, man. Everybody feel good, you know. Oh, I feel better. You know, they work, you know, that's amazing.
Well, Rabelais was an alchemist, you know. He also wrote the first novel, right? You know what I mean? And the Rabelais Encyclopedia says that the pantagruelium was hashish, not just, you know, hemp or anything like that, you know. And it seems, I've read his book, Pantagruel, a couple of times. It seems like there was some sort of cannabis-infused wine in use. Cannabis-infused wines were very popular, you know. I actually had that collection that Donnie had. I started that, then Malmo Levine bought it off me, and then I saw Donnie in Oregon, and told him about it being for sale, and he came up and bought it.
Right, I know. I just nearly bought it in front of Donnie, but now Donnie got it. It's good. Right.
But yeah, I think alchemists were definitely preparing cannabis extracts, you know, and that's something that I've been researching on and off for years and collecting bits of information on, for sure.
In the museum, we have a belt with certain remedies in it and some certain medicine. So the guy can have a belt around and visit people at home. And there's the cannabis as well. So it was a very important medicine, for sure. Well, it's interesting, you know. It's always I love to see your comments and your writing.
Yeah, we don't get to talk very often, you know. I think I saw you a decade ago or so at the Cannabis Cup. We communicate, but yeah, great to be able to actually vocalize and see you.
Well, I was out for a couple of years because I was really tired. After the museum in Barcelona was open, I was working my ass off for a couple of years, day and night, 7 days a week. And now I retired, you know, I'm living in Malaysia, go it slowly a bit. So once in a while, I'm very slow in reactions or what, but it's also fun. So it's the same with Alan. Slowly we come back here, you know, and do some things again.
Yeah, Victor Mayer, who actually was the guy who, a professor who identified the mummies in China as Caucasian, has asked me to write an article showing that the Chinese Huma cannabis became Heoma and this became Soma via the Gushi mummies for a peer-reviewed academic journal recently, you know. So kind of stoked about that, you know. It's like he's the top guy in those Chinese mummies. He's the guy who broke the story, really.
Yeah. No, it is interesting, you know. I see Robert Clark once in a while. He comes to visit me in Borneo also, and we talked about those things also. Like it is still happening, you know, that in the old days, plants travel like people travel. You know?
Yeah.
People travel and plants travel along, and that's already a long, long time. And it's very interesting. Even.
Well, you know, it's funny that you say that because the first evidence we have of cannabis use is from the Ukraine region amongst a Proto-Indo-European group known as Sredeni Stog. and this is evidence was cannabis burnt in a polypod clay bowl in a cave. These people were also credited with domesticating the horse, and the horse is thought to have been brought into domestication via the use of hemp ropes. They needed ropes to tie the horses and bind them, right? You know what I mean? In order to domesticate them. And so the earliest people to discover cannabis were also the first really nomadic people. And then their descendants, the Scythians, who were also horse-riding nomads, are widely credited with spreading cannabis use and the linguistics for cannabis throughout the ancient world.
Yeah, that's bloody interesting. You connect a lot of things together, Chris. I love it.
Yeah, well, the plant does. You know what I mean? I think it's kind of like when Jack Herer was writing "The Emperor Wears No Clothes." Once you put that key in the door, industrial hemp, and open that door, everything just kind of starts flooding into space. So you just got to pick the right question to ask, and that's all there, you know.
Well, that's all what I say. You know, if you look in the past, you see the future. In a way.
Yeah.
Because everything is done already in a way, and of course.
Well, it's like you were saying about those medical bottles. It's all stuff that people think they're just discovering now. You know what I mean? Prior to Prohibition, they were already labeling and identifying cannabis for specific ailments.
Yeah, and it was all organic, right?
Yeah.
It was all organic. It's great. No, fun. Amazing.
I wish my computer was better internet. I would love to join in on the conversation, but it's nice to hear you guys having a great conversation.
We hear you. We can hear you.
Yeah, you're coming through clear now anyways.
Yeah, you're coming through clear as day, sir.
It can, and will change quickly.
That can happen to any of us. Cursed internet.
But you can ask questions, Mark. You can interact. We can totally. You're completely audible.
Cool, excellent. Well, I'm trying to keep my microphone muted when everyone else is talking, but it's nice to hear the conversation between Ben and Chris. I know that they're definitely both been avidly collecting, I guess, what would be considered sort of the lost cannabis history that would otherwise not exist if it weren't for people like Ben and Skunkman and Chris and even David Malmo Levine had an incredible museum there for a while in Vancouver. It was pretty awesome.
It really brings it to life when you start seeing these artifacts. You know, it's one thing to read about cannabis medicine prior to Prohibition, but then when you start seeing dozens and dozens and dozens of different medical bottles and finding out things like Piso's Cura, or the most common cough medicine, was based with cannabis indica, and that 90% of the corn and bunion plasters were based with cannabis indica. It really brings it to life and validates the work that we're doing, for sure.
Yeah. Well, you can see that with the visitors in the museum as well. You know, first there's a sort of unbelief if you're talking about medical cannabis, like, come on. You know? And then when they see the history and you see all these different bottles, there's aphrodisiac, you know, there's against woman hysteria, you know, it's, so we know what to give the wife if they.
Absolutely.
It goes a long way.
But then they realize, hey, it was here before, you know, and then something changed. That's fun.
How many of the different strains, you mentioned NO5 by Hayes, and honestly it was always one of my favorites. It was one of the first strains I experienced that picked me up, made me feel energized, and didn't just sedate me. And, what was that? What is Hayes? What was that? And how many other strains? I mean, Jack Herer also was a similar parentage.
In the early days, we did mainly the classic breeding, you know, and then Alan went into the breeding. So he did most of the work. Right. And we had material already that we were very happy with. And then go on from there, you know.
So, you made Jack Herer's name synonymous with a flower instead of a book. I know I was standing next to him. That's when I met you, that you christened that pot Jack Herer for Jack. But You know, how did you meet Jack? Obviously, he became an inspiration to you.
Jack came, I think, a couple of years before. I don't know the date. He came to Rotterdam to see me, and it's in YouTube. You see they make 10 episodes of it, and it's nice because it's still like now, you know.
But what you mean is you were being just like Mark and sitting with the video camera pointing it at Jack Herrer and interviewing Jack.
Yeah, that's what I did. And you should look it up because it's very nice, you know. It's the same thing. It was how many years? 27 years I lost it. You know, it's about 27 years ago, is it?
Yeah, 91, I believe you did it.
A little bit like that?
Yeah, 90 or 91.
Something there.
I saw the footage.
And I lost it, you know, and we found it in because I digitalized all my tapes and then we found it again.
Wow.
But, well, it was fun with Jeff. We had the same ideas, you know, and the same story. And I told you already that in the museum it was nice. We had to give the information. We had all the arguments and all the stories. But one question I never could answer, and that is, if hemp is that and this and that, why nobody's doing it? And I couldn't answer that. And I don't know if I knew Jack already or not, but we decided to do it. I had money in the bank because we did very well with the coffee shop and the seeds.
Yeah.
So I had money in the bank, and well, we put it there, you know, and we bought an old linen factory, flax.
Flax, yeah.
Flax is, well, you can.
The flax powder, hemp flax.
Yeah.
And the meaning of the name was just to make an association, a commonality.
You know, it's always something behind it, like hemp and flexible. You know.
Hemp and flexible.
Flax,
really
flax,
good.
but it's also flexible.
It is flax, right?
It is flax, you know. It's real the flax name.
Going back into history, what was the #1 fabric used before? We didn't have a cotton gin until the 1790s, so everything when we landed in North America was hemp and canvas. You'd call it canvas and other. What was the #2? Linen? What was the #2 flax?
No. The hemp was the most common, and wool.
Wool
and hemp.
Wool and hemp.
And flax was more for the rich people.
Really?
Yeah, it was a finer cloth, you know, and actually in the city where I live in, there was a company, and they just stopped. They started in 1700 or so. And they did flax in this area. Even the name of this street is Flax. You know. And they have in this area flax, and they refined it to very exclusive material, and they call it linen, right? And all the closets in Holland, still now, we call it a linen closet.
Correct, yeah. We do in America too, there's linen closets. I grew up with that.
But because everybody wanted
to have linen. I get it now. It was the desirable fabric.
It was the desirable fabric,
yeah.
But it was actually in a hand closet because most of
it was in a because mostly all they could afford was a common thread.
Famous Southwest with the fishermen and the sailors used. It was hemp, and the coats, you know, like the wax coats and the oil coats they still use in Australia. You know, the leather, not leather, but it's hemp, right, with wax and oil.
And wax and oil, yeah. It's I have one from Australia that's and it's oiled. It's oiled canvas. Yeah. Oiled canvas, yeah.
Most of the time it's oiled linen what you get now.
Yeah.
Cheap.
Right. Absolutely, they do. You know, well, clothes didn't wear out, I guess, for a while. You know, when my grandmother was a kid, I remember her saying, you know, clothes you used to be able to pass down, and now everything goes to, you know, to shit so fast, and it's because we're using these short fibers that break down quicker. But you know, Levi's jeans doesn't mind because they get a turnover in jean sales, so yeah, it's good for them.
Yeah, well, I don't know. One of the most interesting part of hemp fabric is that it is antibacterial, and that is now for hospitals with all these funny bacteria. It becomes more interesting than before. And it is also more fire resistant, so for firemen and stuff, they knew already, but also they didn't care much about it.
Right.
But now for hospitals and stuff, they're looking more into it.
As a lifesaver, wow. Yeah.
That's interesting.
And even IKEA, there's some big companies now, they're really going into, they want to see what they can do.
Well, IKEA would be perfect because all their stuff is press board anyway. So if they could press it together with hemp herds, that'd be really
It
cool.
would be nice.
Yeah, it would be. Yeah, I'd then buy it probably because that's.
I don't know, you know.
No, I don't know. Well, I would definitely think it was a good thing.
Do you guys agree that that it seems as though we're lacking a certain amount of infrastructure for hemp to really step into its area, like when we talked about the 50,000 commercial products and all this amazing, incredible stuff that hemp could do in Canada, it seemed to really turn into a one-trick pony for just the food aspect. And I'm not just saying just the food, because it's absolutely incredible food product and it's healthy and it's wonderful. But the whole trip about hemp is that it has the ability to do so much. Are we lacking infrastructure to get all of this done? Is that what the real problem is?
If I'm well informed, but I don't know for sure, one of the reasons of they do only the seeds, because they're only allowed to do the seeds in Canada, but I'm not sure about it. You know, and the other thing is, you're absolutely right. I have every month a few people who want to start growing hemp in Germany, in Austria, whatever, you know, wherever. And that's the first thing I ask, how much you have to invest. And the second thing, you know, you really need to be informed if you do something with hemp. I really give the advice because there's so many different factors why hemp growing works or not. And, you know, the best thing is if you can go to end products like we do with the herds. We sell it to horse bedding and to small pets. So we sell it directly, you know, near directly to consumers. But if you have infrastructure like in America, if you have to, you know, you shouldn't even grow hemp further away than 40 miles from your factory, because then you're fucked already with the infrastructure. And so there's a lot of many factors.
Meaning transport decreases profit so much it's not worth growing it so far away.
There's many factors.
Well, it also becomes if you're doing something for the reasons of, you know, you're trying to be more to the environment, or you're trying to be more healthy to your body, it doesn't do you any favors to try and drink coconut water if you have to fly them on jet airplanes from the other side of the world to get them to you. And it's why a macrobiotic diet makes so much sense. And of course, that's really like macrobiotic hemp farming. Of course, you want to farm that hemp close, so you're not having to use big trucks to move it back and forth. Sort of purpose.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. You know, if somebody say, I want to grow a few acres, you know, a few hectares, I say, do it. You know, do it for the seeds. And you play with it with the sheaves if you want. Or the stalks, you can grind them and do something else with it. But on a commercial scale, you know, an industrial scale, there's a lot of factors that you have to consider. You know, we're starting a new factory in Romania, and I just give you one example. You know, when we grow here in Holland, we do that now 20 years, and all the lessons we learned, you know, it's why I say there's so many factors, because we have to overcome all the different factors that were involved in growing hemp successfully. And now we go to Romania. I'll give you one example. In Germany now, right away, not far from our border, they have this, I don't know the name in English, but they gas corn, and they gas chicken shit, and they make energy out of food, right? And they pay the farmers now €1,250 a hectare to grow there. And we with hemp, we paid 900, 900, and that is already too much, because we don't make the money. We have 20-year hemp flags, and we lose 20 years money, a lot. But so now we go to this. They took away all the subsidy from hemp. Well, in Europe, believe there's still subsidy on tobacco, but they took all the subsidy on the only sustainable plant there is hemp. There's nothing else. Maybe bamboo, but nobody grow it. So there's no subsidy on it. And now we go to Romania, and we pay about 200, 250 euros to the farmer, and we got 175 euros back on subsidy. So it cost us 75 euro instead of 1250 plus plus plus. You see, and then it makes it, and then the infrastructure there is also again enough to say, okay, the fiber we are able to bring anywhere in the world. It's no problem. We can, we're going to ship fiber to America soon. Also for the automotive industry, that's very interesting. It's just starting. The factories still have to be open. But the herds, the ships again, is going to be a problem for us. But even if we send the herds in bales for the horse bearing to Holland, we still end up cheaper than we do in Holland. So you can imagine all these different factors. Also the land prices. What is the rent of the land? And that's what farmers are. Beautiful, sweet people, but more there, they go for the dime, and if you have a dime too short, they are angry to you, and they, I don't want hemp anymore. So it's really difficult to work with farmers. In Romania, a hectare of land costs about 4,000 euro. In Holland, between 40 and 60,000 euro. So for a farmer, so you understand the farmer needs the 1,250 because he already dying, even they got a 1,250, and so it is logical that if you want to do it industrial, you have to find all the different factors that makes it convenient to grow hemp for a price, and that is also for the CBD oil. We're making a lot of CBD oil at the moment, but I want to have it for a price that people can afford it, and that is the big problem. If I see the CBD prices, I'm going crazy. Like what? This is, how can people afford to buy that? So even if it's sick people, as prevention, it should be cheaper. So then you need an industrial approach, and then the soil in Romania is more clean than we got in Holland, and all these kind of factors start to count. And that is the only target for me is to get hemp really on the map and really profitable, and really giving the products for the fair price that it can do if the big companies allow us. If not, then not. We cannot come with our pet litter. How you call it? Litter?
Kitty litter.
Kitty litter. We cannot come into the supermarkets here. They do sell about 8 very unfriendly poison shit. That really, like, they bring lava from Iceland to bring it here for the cat litter. They throw it in the garbage. In the garbage, they throw it in the ovens, and the ovens, they have a lot of shit. They have 5% because it doesn't burn. Oh. So they got so much shit, So it's interesting to see what happens, or what can happen with hemp. But then you need also the mainstream, and now with the CBD oil, is it legal? Is it not legal? What the fuck? It's getting too far. The THC level, I tell you one funny thing. We grow flowers now also for the cows, for food, right? I'm sorry, my English sometimes.
Yeah.
So now we have different varieties of plants, and I put 2 plants in the green here, and I bring a cow. And now the one plant the cow can eat, the other he cannot. He's not allowed to eat. It's really the law now. So can you imagine? Because there's going to be THC in the cow, and if it is 0.1%, then the cow can eat it. But if it is 0.2%, the cow cannot eat it. It's not allowed. It's forbidden. The meat will be forbidden. The milk. What they find out is the cows are much healthier, and they produce more milk eating cannabis.
Can I just tell you what I thought as you said that? Because obviously they're worried about, like, same with urine tests, they're going to show up in its cheese and its milk cannabinoid levels, right? Because the cow's eating hemp that has significant enough cannabinoid levels is going to pass through. And I was thinking, just like 50 years ago, bread started advertising that it was fortified with vitamins and minerals, at what point will mainstream food, start advertising that it's fortified with cannabinoids from exactly this process?
Well, listen, we got already the omega chicken, and we got the omega
That's great.
eggs.
Yeah.
The eggs is the same thing.
It is.
You give them the seed, they will produce the omega. So good, you know. And then they say, no, man, this chicken is stoned, man. You know,
Yeah.
this cow is now he's too stoned to get his milk. Come on, you know. You see how ridiculous it is, and it's very ridiculous to me. But we have to still. It is the law what I'm facing with hemp. You know, that is the law that I fight. Lucky they don't bust me anymore. They don't put me in jail anymore for this shit I'm telling them.
Well, you know, Ben, you're kind of comparable. You're kind of our Elon Musk. You know, the guy is just putting so much. He has a vision. He believes in his electric cars. He believed in his SpaceX program. He put more money into it than anyone could fathom. And as he builds the infrastructure that's necessary, the batteries become cheaper and everything becomes more cheaper in a way that the infrastructure can actually exist. And you've kind of done the same thing with hemp, you know, operating at a loss, continuing to believe, continuing to have the faith in the plant. And I got to applaud you on that because it hasn't been a short journey.
No, it was 20 years, you know, and when you work 20 years with hemp, you're 40 years old.
No doubt. Hey, I had another question in regards to a product I saw probably at least 20 years ago when we had our company out of Manitoba. We had just received our license and we had just received commercialization from which was originally experimental. We changed that to commercial and we are now allowed to grow for profit. And I think it might have been 1998, we had an event where we invited many different people in, and we had a Swiss guy named Beat Studer who came, and he had interest. We had David Ratke from the cardboard manufacturers from the U.S. showed up. This gentleman now, Peter Steiner, showed up with a product called hemp metal. Have you ever seen hemp metal?
I've muted it because of airplane. Go ahead.
Two things. Hemp metal, probably you mean hemp stone?
All I remember was that it was stronger than titanium, it was lighter than aluminum, it was 9.7 on the hardness scale. It could cut glass if you just held it in your hand and put an X into an ashtray. And the reason we kind of believed it was because the people who were that showed up as well were these brothers, the Hack brothers, from they owned diamond mines in Africa, because apparently diamonds were the only substance that could cut this hemp metal. And it was Peter Steiner. I haven't seen it since, but I did get to hold it in my hand at the time.
He had a beautiful wife, Peter Steiner. You know, this is how I remember him very well. The wife was beautiful. I like women. Beautiful woman, you remember. And Peter Steiner was with a company, with a fat lady. She came everywhere. I forgot the name. There was an American company. They collected money together, and they hired a Swiss guy, and Steiner, and lawyers, and they all promised them big shares in the company when they come along. So I forgot the bloody name of.
Was that Sue Branna?
Sue Branna, right? That was Sue Branna, and she was connected with Steiner, and Steiner was the guy who said he was one of the investors, and you know they came with a whole group in Paris in the Hilton Hotel, as I recall, and everybody in the hemp industry was invited to come over there, and we went, and I saw it right away. This is not kosher. You know, something wrong here, because all the hemp people needed money. Everybody was thinking, now the Americans come with money, you know, because they are interested in taking shares in each company. The French, the Germans, the British, me, and it was a phony. And then Peter Steiner later on, he came and he tried to sell me the vortex energy. He had a beautiful plan, you know, it looks good with some documents. He had a student who make energy out of the vortex with water, right? And
right.
Say about it, but it was an independent energy source, blah blah blah, and they needed few million investors. So Steiner is a guy who runs with all the winds. He's a nice guy, he's a nice man, but you know, at the end when Sue Branna and the whole thing collapsed, I had some contact. He came to me with the vortex thing. And then he told me that he didn't have any shares and it was all phony baloney. The professor was sitting there. They had enzyme methods for to make textile, and I don't know what they. But it, you know Sue Brennan's story, I think.
Oh yeah, I know the story
So,
all too well for sure. That's interesting that you to hear your take on it though. Thank you for that.
but Peter Steiner, like I said, is a nice man with a beautiful wife, and but he's also looking for opportunities. And so I don't remember the steel. I only remember the stone. And stone is something you can make of everything. The Austrians do that.
Right.
Stone, you call it. But if you do it with newspaper, the same method, you'll have the same result.
Can I ask a question? To talk about your real, obviously, your true love. You guys see this?
The Hash Church, you know?
It is Hash Church, and while we're sitting here having Hash Church, for Hash Church, everybody. Does that mark focus in?
You know, what you guys shouldn't forget, you dabbers, that the whole entourage of Hashis is already thousands of years old. So respect, okay, brothers?
You dabbers. Look at Mark. Mark, you dab. You do. You dab. You
Because
dab that dry sift. You do. You
I
dab.
tell you, you know.
Well, though, listen, the dabbers would all be blown away if they could ever put their lips on an Afghani hubble bubble pipe.
Good Afghan.
Hey, what countries are those big balls from there, Ben and Todd?
The ones I got here?
Definitely the country of Ben's desk.
Well, actually, this is an Afghan plant growing in Morocco. I know he's growing there. And the other thing is a Moroccan, and I think, I'm not sure what this is. Somebody gave it to me.
That's amazing.
I think it's a water hash.
It's beautiful. The sheen on it's amazing, Mark. And you touch it to the lighter, it just, I don't know if you can see this.
It's
Very
really
nice. Yeah, see what it does in the light.
No, but you know, I smoked a lot of good shit in the world. You know, that one of the best hash was Turkish. Actually, you know, they had such a beautiful hash, and the Lebanese they could make it. And the Lebanese make oil. Huh? They make beautiful oil. I saw it already 25 years ago. They had beautiful oil.
I always appreciate the difference of maturity in the Lebanese blonde and the Lebanese.
Ben, if you were left on a desert island with only one genetic for yourself, what genetic would you take?
Female, I guess.
No. Which strain? He means which strain?
I'm joking. Well, the Jack.
Yeah.
The Jack Harrow, yeah.
How long were you working on that before you named it after Jack?
About 3 years, I think, 3-4 years.
Wow. That's how long you put into developing a strain back then?
Minimum 2, yeah. Minimum 2. And we had four times a year.
Right. So 4 cycles of tests, and you're talking like 12 times of testing to get to a place where you felt like comfortable to release it. Wow. I would say a lot of seed companies don't practice that today.
No. But, you know, the modern technology probably don't need it anymore. Yeah, they do. But because like now in Sensor Seed, it's a really, like, we saw it, I think. The laboratory is there, the people at the universities work together, everybody got this different kind of, you know, angle to go into cannabis. It's amazing. So for me to follow up, it's hard to do. So I'm snatching up a bit from here and there, and then you realize that, like what Chris also do, you know, from the history, you see the future as well.
Yeah. Anybody that can read Nederlander can go and see my Twitter. I posted an article that was in yesterday's newspaper calling you Mr. Marijuana. Yeah, and outlining what's going on with hemp flax in a very positive light.
Yeah. Well, it's changing, you know. 20 years ago, it was a weed factory from the coffee shop owner, and for more than 15 years, they never believed what we did.
Right.
You know,
a lot of prejudice against you.
Oh, they took our subsidy away, and you know, there was a lot of shit. I was in jail for him.
Of all things, not cannabis, not growing cannabis, not growing seeds, not the coffee shop.
No, because we have hemp varieties with 2 farmers. You're supposed to have this variety, and he's supposed They switched around. It's both hemp, and they said we do something wrong. And they busted through the factory. They arrested 2 workers and my director at that time. And then I went to see them in the north, and I put me in jail also 2 days, 2 nights.
2 days in jail.
Yeah.
For growing the wrong hemp that was legal to grow in the wrong field.
Yeah.
Technically.
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I was in court, and they acquitted me totally anonymous.
Yeah.
And the prosecutor go in an appeal, and I come to the appeal. There's 3 guys, and they found me guilty right away. Bum. And I give me
back to guilty.
Yeah. And then there was one more way I could go.
Appeal again. Yeah.
And then my lawyer fucked me because I was in Asia, and he said he forgot, or he was too late. He sent me on Wednesday. He sent me an email that the time was on, But I told him already to go for the. Told me that I have to decide if I want to appeal, and it was already the day before. And
what was the punishment at the end of your finding you guilty for growing that wrong hemp?
80 hours social service and 90,000 fine for hemp. Yeah.
You had to do the social service?
Yeah.
What the heck did you do?
Hiking the.
You're shitting me.
Yeah, no, in the old folks' home, I did a dive.
You're shitting me.
No, a journalist came to see me. A good guy. I have to call him that. Because now the story is
pretty
more
silly.
And more complete, Because, like, what I wanted to say is, like, all these years, if you see the publications, and there was a lot, radio, television, always. I was always the funny guy, the crazy guy with the stupid thing, but yeah, impossible, terrible,
Right.
And now they come up with, hey, this guy, he did this and he do this, and even the museum and the right-wing newspaper, then a bunch of assholes.
And in a very positive way.
And they write in a positive way. So that is really new to me,
Right. It was a different experience.
Well, it happens a little bit more, but then it's, more on the side magazines or on the internet. But the normal, regular newspaper, the biggest in Holland, right wing, it's nice to see this article. Yeah.
Right.
Oh, nice. Well, we did a lot of talking about CBD oil. We talked, and now I see you guys in the church here. And you are all the guys you can talk for days, right? Well, if you talk with Todd, you can talk for days. And there's a lot of topics we test by. It's fun. I like it. It's good.
Yeah. So CBD is something now that HempFlax is going to pursue. Obviously, CBD is predominant in the hemp varieties that you grow and that have grown for 2 decades. There was just never really a market for the CBD.
No, right, and now we got it.
And now people are waking up to it. Yeah.
We got a lot, guys. If anybody can sell it, sell it.
So that means you have this stuff. You're here up in Europe. You guys are doing CBD extraction from hemp flowers that are naturally grown.
Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah. Wow. And how are you doing it? CO2 or
CO extraction.
By large volume.
By large volume. The big company that do that.
Legally.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. That's incredible.
But then there's other legal matters that is you have to hurdle.
I understand.
Like you can only sell it business to business.
Stuff like that.
Not to the consumer. You can't give it to cows.
No cows. Wow.
If the CBD is too high, you can give it to the cows.
What an interesting side product of it, because they limited your THC. How much THC can you have in the hemp you grow at HempFlax?
Officially, it is by the European law. It is 0.2%. And
wow.
The French, Ministry of Agriculture always hated me and did adding everything to make it impossible for me.
So to grow hemp.
They stole my subsidies, and they did everything what they can do to stop me, but I didn't stop. Well, on the other hand, the French, who do this already a long time, they grow hemp, right?
Yeah.
Mainly for paper. They have varieties, and they come up now to 0.7%, and 0.4, 0.5. Mm-hmm. So all these varieties have been officially at the high of THC.
Right.
So the French agrarian ministry asked the Dutch if they can ask in the committee that they hire
to raise the level so that their farmers in France are in compliance.
Yes, exactly. And the Dutch did. So I
complied. So did the level go up?
I still wait for the answer. I didn't have the
What
answer.
will it bring it to?
0.5. But then,
then France would still be out of
but
miss.
then they say, well, then
They'll fudge.
They'll fudge.
Now, if this, I've always found it rather stupid or peculiar that they force us to have conversations about cannabinoids when for historically, 20 years, it wasn't what you harvested. You harvested cellulose, fiber, and seed, proteins, horse bedding, what became fabrics and wood chips. And instead you had to count cannabinoids, which seemed like a chasing your tail kind of a scenario. And how do you think the cannabinoid levels would look if that wasn't the conversation? If you were just growing hemp that acclimated well to the Netherlands, where do you think your THC, CBD levels might be at in a natural space?
Probably not far out of range of what we grow now.
Really?
To be honest, yeah. But in Romania, it's a different story again. We in Holland we are very wet. This is why Holland was so popular with hemp in the old days, because we have the dual retting, right? It means you cut your fiber and the retting will be done by the dew, right?
Yeah.
And it makes it easy to decorticate it.
Right.
So, hold on, I got to decortication now in the retting. But you want to ask something about the CBD, right?
Well, I was saying that the levels in the phenotypes now that you're allowed to grow legally are reflected in legislation and not really in climate.
What I wanted to say is that some of the varieties is really like textile worthy. They have very thin fiber, and you put them more together.
Right. You're growing for bass. This variety will work grass.
For textile, if you would do that.
Right.
If you do it for seeds, one of the biggest seed producers is probably skunk.
Skunk. The skunk.
Yeah.
Okay. Right.
They produce a lot of seeds.
So if you were growing for food or seed source or protein, you would literally, skunk 1 might be the phenotype and not hemp.
Right. And that is very interesting, I think, because there's one variety, Finola,
right,
that might be also a very good seed yielder, but it is really what is his name? Jason, I forgot his last name. He originated this plant, especially for the north. It's called Finola. It's quite short. It doesn't grow so high.
Jason
Callaway?
Say that again, Mark.
Jace Callaway?
Yes, Callaway. Nice guy. And he made this Finola. It took him many years to get it on the market. He got it on the market now. So we're testing it out even this year. So wow. I hope that it, like in Romania, it really works for the seeds, because the seeds, yielding seeds, is also very important. And then again, the whole bloody story come again. What are the most potential seeds? What is the difference in seeds? There's still a long way to come with all the varieties of different
specific purpose in the industrial application.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah, and I wanted to comment on Canada. Was explained to me by people pitching an investment to a wealthy friend of mine that the Canadian hemp industry would spool up in 3 phases. First phase would be the proteins, the seeds, because it was the cheapest. The second would be the cellulose, the paper, because the mills were the cheapest. Third would be fiber, where we'd see clothing and sails and ropes and things like that, because that was most expensive. Is that correct?
I think, yeah.
So it's just an evolution of time for Canada to find other applications. You mentioned antibacterial, but is that one of the reasons why horse bedding did so well for you? You really sold a lot of horse bedding.
Yeah, the horse bedding is especially for the long stroke of horses. The humidity in the stables.
Oh wow!
In the old stables, if you use strong, the urine and everything evaporates quite fast. And
they breathe it in.
And they breathe it in. So it's if you go in an old horse stable, it's also muffy and smelly, and moisturous.
Right.
So and with this, it is much more dry, and it regulates the humidity in the stable.
In the room. Wow.
Yeah.
And is it also antibacterial, like the fiber?
I cannot give you the answer. I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't know in what sense. What kind of bacteria. This is a good question. I don't know.
Sorry asking, you know, I mean,
No,
you're one of the few people
it's
I
a
can
good
ask
question.
anything I can think of
Since
in
the fiber,
cannabis, you
since the
know.
fiber hangs, probably the might also, but I'm like I said,
Yeah, anybody listening? Yeah. I remember reading, I
Well,
think.
it's an alternative to sawdust. When I worked in after the war, when I worked in horses in Pennsylvania, we actually physically went down to sawmills by the Amish and shoveled out sawdust. Not only is your hemp beneficial because it's also how many crops you can grow. It is antibacterial. It also is anti-mold, which is key, and it doesn't have the dust that is with sawdust. So not only does it keep the humidity down in the room, it keeps allergens down for the horses as well. And when they pee in it, etc., it doesn't stir up a whole bunch of dust. So I can see why your hemp herds were so successful, because finding trees in Europe just for putting down for your horses to piss and shit in is not necessarily the most environmentally sound until your product was consistently available.
there's one thing I have to tell you: the product is successful. It's a beautiful product, but nevertheless, the horse owners don't go for it because the straw is so much cheaper. Even if because if they really calculate it, the hemp herds will be not much more expensive, but they buy it very cheap from the farmers, and there's always a price tag, you know, what keep people away from it. So it's not like you can grow a hemp on the knowledge that you're going to sell herd. That's why I said to some friends in America, if you do something with hemp, buy it from us and make your market, see what your market, how they react, because they really they don't do it because they have their own land and their own straw, and they don't do it. But like the Queen's horses from the Queen in England and from Denmark, those horses are on hemp.
Wow. Yeah, where would we have really been in the cultural evolution without cannabis? When you think that paper was invented in China, and the first cloth we really were using was these longer fibers, the easier was hemp, and you know, canvas sails. It's
And also,
amazing.
I have to say that the hemp herd has to be really dry, and otherwise you have a problem. If the mold is coming when it's really, if there was something wet, and the magic of it, you know, if you just leave it, the mushrooms come. You know, they come by it, so they love it. The mushrooms coming.
They pop right out of the hemp.
Yeah, they pop out. Alan did a lot of experiments with it.
Sadly, none were psychoactive.
No, we tried also to grow on it, and it didn't work well.
Well, now it is working well. We did find that product in the supermarket just yesterday. I could go grab it, everybody. But it's actually your hemp fibers matted down as a rooting mat on organic sprouts, correct?
Yeah, that's the fiber, but not the wood chips.
Oh, okay, the wood
chip. The fiber is now for sprouts. We got it here, right?
It's an alternative to rock wool. It's quite amazing. I'll actually get it.
Rock wool, and they also have now the cocoa fiber, right? It's also already in the market.
What do you think about the market for just protein powder isolate, just the leftover from pressing the oil out of the seed?
We got it, and then what I hear, it's a very good product, and we grow seeds now in, you know, about 800 hectares, I think, 600 or 800 in Romania.
Mm-hmm.
Also ecological part of it, and those seeds we sell to a company that press the oil, and they do the whole thing, and we kind of sell it on our brand.
So if you can see this, everybody, these are sprouts, and what's amazing is, see the roots?
Yeah, looks like a little.
See the
rock.
This is the mat.
That's exactly it, and then this is the mat. Here, let it focus. Isn't that so? Now you can see that this is a biological delivery device for health food.
Absolutely.
And this
Very
is,
cool.
Well done, Ben. Well fucking done.
no, it's not me, because I've tried to sell these busters already for 20 years something. They never did. So we only sell the mat now to another guy who made the caps. So it's the same with BMW. They win the ecological prize in car making, and they didn't mention it was because of the hemp in it, but that was the reason. And they don't mention hemp, you know. And it is with this thing the same. It is our hemp, but it doesn't mention hemp or what, nothing. So they still don't want to know it.
Still facing bigotry in
We're
this.
still facing hypocrisy in that sense.
Yeah.
Damn Germans.
But it might be
No,
soon that
it's
we're
everywhere.
seeing hemp mats instead of rock wool mats in our hydroponic growing, because that's all this is, people. This is just like a rock wool mat. Instead of this being rock wool, this is natural hemp fibers.
Well, from a chemist's perspective, this is just cellulose, which is sawdust. It's just cellulose. It's all the same thing. It's a glucose molecule taken really long. They're called polymers, right? And these things called fibers are basically just long molecules of cellulose. And so whether BMW gets their cellulose from wood or they get it from hemp or jute or any other natural fiber,
No.
it's just cellulose.
Yeah, it's
That's all it is. Cellophane can be derived from any kind of cellulose that comes on a plant. It doesn't need to be derived from trees. The reason why it's derived from trees and paper is derived from trees is mostly an economical one, because the large multinational paper and lumber companies are like one and the same, and they own the lumbering rights or negotiated lumbering rights on public lands to basically process those things into wood and paper and fiber and pulp. So, Mark, you were talking before, the investment in infrastructure that needs to happen is to be able to turn a paper mill that processes wood and wood fiber to be able to process hemp and hemp fiber. I mean, that's the investment that needs to happen and needs to occur, and that needs to be done on a large scale by a large company.
Yeah.
Probably.
I bought 2 paper mills. One is there where we work, but it was a paper mill before, and then next door there was an old paper mill, and I bought that one as well, mainly for storage, because they have a lot of storage space. To make paper is impossible. It's too expensive.
Is it?
We even have a small machine, I call it a lab machine. We can make it, I tried, maybe we can just make art paper, so we didn't do it. So paper, and then the other one thing is that the paper mill have to be right around the corner, otherwise you have your infrastructure problem also, and you have to bring it too far. And like what you mentioned as a grow medium, it doesn't work too well because it doesn't hold too long. After 2 weeks it starts to rotten. So they did experiments with it, and the cocoa fiber guys, they did it. We didn't go on because, again, to make this product is bloody expensive. So, and a paper mill is also impossible to start, and that is the same thing with making fibers for textile. You're talking about these companies are so huge. If we want to press our wood, if we have 2,000 hectares, how much we have? Around 6,000-7,000 tons of wood chips. Those guys, they press that in plates in 3 days. It's 2-3 days work for them, and say that they don't want to adapt the machines even for what we think is a very large volume, but for them it's nothing. There's those factories, if you see them, who press the wood plates, it's
Obnoxiously big. Yeah.
crazy.
Proportionately
And
unnatural.
the cars running in and out with trees.
So do you think there's going to get to be a time where we unfortunately deforest our planet and then have to replace it with hemp?
I think so, yeah.
Where
Because,
we're heading.
I don't know what they do. They say they have a lot of production wood, they say. But the amount they work with, it's tremendous.
Right.
And then you got, from Canada, this is also a funny story. In Holland, we got what they call green electric, right? You can you go to your electric company, you can buy the normal electric or you buy green and you pay a few cents more.
Yep.
And the big electric company, they have the green energy because they bring in wood chips, the pellets from Canada, from production, what they say production for us, but they bring pellets from Canada with a huge tanker to here, to Holland, and they call it green. How about the harvest cost there? But it is highly subsidized.
Right, and the transportation
it's bloody
costs
highly
to
subsidized.
Europe. Yeah.
So, because only the transportation and the harvest of the trees and drying it, pelletizing it, is the same we should have done with hemp here. But we don't have a chance because they are cheaper, because they got so much subsidy from the government to call it green energy. Well, that's,
It's
it's
disingenuous.
Yeah, but it doesn't work. Even you put it on the bell, nobody listens. It's something like, hey, yeah, what, and the media, they don't give a shit also. But to me, it's very obvious because I took the chance to, and I put even some people on it, to find out the price, how much you pay for the bloody pellets there, what come out of, how much is the cost, how much you pay, and they didn't answer. And then finally we had an answer, something like 80 cents or 85 cents. Well, we cannot produce hemp for that price. But they don't tell us how much subsidy is on it. So they probably, it costs $2.50 or more.
Wow.
And then hemp is very much suitable.
Right.
For 200 we can bring it.
Especially shipping it.
Exactly. But they have these huge tankers, no? They're huge ships.
Of course.
But that is not sustainable. It's not durable to get wood from the other side of the world and bring it here to burn it, right?
It's completely insane.
Doesn't make sense at all. While we have so much land here, we could grow enough of that pellets, But that's probably the future, There's one of the things, I think, those huge companies, they invest so much ahead in front. And it takes time to switch over. That's the same now. You see this the hemp cars and the hemp motorcycles and boats and things they're making up. Slowly, it is changing. And then, then it's there.
The social acceptance is coming on board in a strong way. Well, people are walking around with cell phones, and they're doing more than just staring at them mindlessly. They're actually learning a lot from them. They're reading. They're looking at photographs. They're seeing cultures from all over the world. And no wonder everybody's stuck to their cell phones, because never in history have people been walking around with a library in their hand that's full color and video and got great data, and they're able to actually explore in a way they want to without the embarrassment of having to ask some asshole, their opinion of something. And I think it's fantastic. And I think now with that in mind, the consciousness around cannabis is becoming global. People are all over the world watching this. I mean, it doesn't matter where they are. They can tune in to what they want to pay attention to, and it changes the way that we learn from each other. Mark and I used to talk about 20 years ago when we met. It was amazing to us to meet at Positronics and sit around and talk and be able to, well, how do you grow? Oh, how do you grow? Because where we came from, we were we couldn't share these things. We had to hide this, and you had this openness that all of us, I mean, when I say all of us, a lot of the American friends I had that came here and witnessed the Cannabis Castle and the Seed Bank and the museums and the other coffee shops, we walked away inspired on so many levels to go and to pursue our own ideas of freedom. I wanted a Cannabis Castle, I won't lie, as soon as I saw that place with the basement full of ganja and the hemp drapes and the hemp sofas and the hemp rope, that nice chair that was out front. I was enamored, I won't kid you. Simple farmhouse, but I realized in a way what I wanted was really a simple life, just with hemp and cannabis and freedom. I wanted freedom.
Well, it was legal, everything I did was legal. So that's a big point. And now you guys, you are in the country with many places legal, and it's going very fast, isn't it?
It's moving at light speed. I mean, and even now to think, I mean, Etienne has been now Berkeley Patients Group open 15 years in Berkeley selling medical cannabis under the auspices of the city. It's really fantastic to see what's going on actually in California and Colorado and elsewhere, and I think a lot of us that was in it 20 years ago owe the inspiration that we saw at the coffee shops and, you know, and the openness that we witnessed and experienced, because our lives were never the same. It was like entering the Wizard of Oz and feeling freedom and going, oh, fuck, I'm never going to be able to go back to the way it was. And thank you, though. You know, thank you very much for opening up your world back then. I appreciate it. It got me in trouble kind of bit. I got me in trouble, but it inspired me to want more freedom in my own country. You know, we celebrate that we're the fucking #1 country of bullshit, but we're really not the freest country. And when you witness freedom and you drive down these roads in Holland and you see hemp as far as the eye could see, and then corn as far as the eye could see, and it looks, you integrated the normality. Yeah, and who would have done it if it wasn't for HempFlex? No one's been pushing for hemp here.
But everybody, you know, like group of people here to mention you on the internet, they all inspire each other, right?
Yeah, we
all
do
these
now.
people who came to me, I learned from them. They learned from me, but I learned from them. Actually.
Right. You know, a lot of people that have been politically active know that when they wrote to Sensi, aside from you, Sensi responded with kindness, and you were very supportive of many foundations, you know, when you weren't at the wheel of your own ship. And I have had, because of my contact with you, people contact me and just show me letters they received from Sensi with contributions to whatever they were trying to do in their hometown. And that fostering of political identity and freedom is something I wish more cannabis companies that are listening would do and follow your lead.
Well, it's always important to give out the information, right?
Right.
And you have to see that, like, I live in Malaysia now, beautiful country, beautiful people, very nice people. But of course, it's in a different country that I respect and I have to respect. But if it is Singapore or China or, you know, or even around the corner here in Europe, where people still go in jail for fun.
Right.
We shouldn't forget the activism, you know, and we should try to give as much information, positive information around in the world.
Right.
And that's well, nice to do. Also.
It is. I wish there's only really one hash marijuana museum in the world like that's been out there for 30 years, and you know, as someone who's been peddling history, trying to convince everybody that cannabis was important and it had this great legacy, your museum was a real great cornerstone for me to experience that it was all real and it existed, and to see the machines and the paintings and the pipes and it all laid out. It was it's not something I have available in North America.
No, but I think Chris will agree with me that it's, I don't know with you, Chris, but with me it was like sometimes every week there's something new happening this way, or something new from the history.
Right.
And every time there's something new from the history, and every time there's something new for the future, and that is amazing. It doesn't stop. It will not stop. That is beautiful.
Yeah.
And the only thing is that we had 75 years of prohibition.
Right.
And we had to catch up.
Right. We are playing catch up now. Yeah. We were pushed back in our progress for almost 3/4 of a century, for sure. And in America, we're only catching up now. We're starting to see hemp fields popping up in Colorado, and people with the courage to grow, and some of it's being used for CBD. And you know, people are starting to get the courage to, as weird as it sounds, to grow a flower. You know, and you've had this courage for a long time.
Well, I love flowers.
Yeah, obviously, and it loves you. She's obviously your greatest girlfriend.
Absolutely.
This has been a blast. You know, we do this every weekend, and I think my biggest motivation in doing it was to share the rich experiences and the information that I had accumulated over the years of spending time with people like you and Jack and Rob Clark, and I could go on, and to have you kind of interact and share. It's beautiful, because there's so many people now that are just getting into cannabis that are trying to do more than just read through old High Timeses and try to figure out what happened back then, and to have, you know, people like you that were literally roaming around Afghanistan back in 1970 looking for, you know, broadleaf drug varieties, as now Rob Clark would call them, so that you could 15 years later, when I was still unable to legally drive, start a seed
Wow.
company is pretty
was,
astounding to me.
It was fun to.
And thank you.
Thank you, man. 10 years ago, we founded the European International Hemp Association, the EIA.
Yeah.
And the last Congress they had, there was more than 150 countries, people coming, you know, from
150 countries.
Yeah, what I hear. So, a lot of people, like 2,000-3,000 people came. What I hear, last news I hear, but it is every year there's more and more people coming from all over the world, interested in hemp. That is also something. I can recall it's 150 or 50, maybe that's 50 something. I'm sorry. Yeah, it's 50 something. It's
Hey, dozens and dozens wanting it will be fine still too.
No,
I mean,
it's
growing.
It's growing like that, and that's interesting.
Right. Yeah. No. It's because I think that we're all thinking at the speed of light. We're communicating. Mark's sitting in Canada, right, Mark?
I am in beautiful Whistler, BC.
Nice.
You sure are. You lucky guy. It's beautiful up there today, is it?
Well, you know what, Phil? It's made more beautiful by the absolute epic water hash that you gave me yesterday. That's basically like see-through, opaque, stained glass window. My goodness, my whole hotel room reeked like Bubba Kush this morning, so I want to say thank you for that.
You're very welcome. Not a problem, my friend. Not a problem. It was nice to see you last night, bud.
Absolutely. So welcome everyone to the room that I wasn't able to welcome. We've been listening to some great stories between Todd and Ben Dronkers, and I still had a couple of questions I wanted to ask Ben about. I desperately wanted to know when you first met Eagle Bill.
Wow. That's a long time ago. I
I'll
don't
make
know
you the
in
coffee.
years.
I'll get you water and a coffee.
Yeah, because Eagle Bill was a big inspiration. He was like, I just thought he was a great energy at those early cannabis cups, those last ones at the PAX Party House on the top floor. He was just always such a hilarious buffer for all the Americans and North Americans that came to the Cannabis Cup, and you bump into Eagle Bill. And of course, my first Cannabis Cup was in '95, and I had a booth. And it was, Jack was there with, I believe, his daughter. And then there was Eagle Bill with the big vaporizer, and it was just you must go back quite a ways with Bill.
Bill came to Holland, and I still had my office in Rotterdam, and he came to Rotterdam, and he told me two things: that he was from Indian side, he was half Indian and lived somewhere with the Indians and stuff, and he wanted to come to Amsterdam. Because we are free with smoking and everything, and he was right. He was there, right? And I didn't know what to do with him and to say with him. And I said, well, and he was planning to go back to the States and come back again, right? And stay longer in Holland. So then I said, I remember that I had a small vaporizer in the museum, and it looked like a coffee bean machine. It was a hot plate. You put your grass on top, and then you close it. There was a tube, and you smoked it. Just a hot plate. And I had it in the museum before, but so it was not from me, and somebody picked it up and took it away again. So I missed it, and I said, Bill, I know there is some vaporizing equipment that I saw in the ones in the museum, and I would like to have one more, and I would like to know more about this vaporizing because I think it's bloody interesting. So he went, and the second thing he did, he said they were growing grass with the Indians, and he said, but every year they get busted, most of it get busted because there's one road to go there and one road back. So there's always the cops know when they harvest and they get busted. So I recommend in the Early Pearl and Early Girl, they're more early. And for a few years, they succeeded. He was very happy. The Indians, because the cops were too late, to block the roads, and that was good fun. And he came back with the vaporizing idea, and we had this glass bowl, a small glass bowl, and you put rosin it, and you put your lighter on it, and it's still on the market, I think. And we met also the guy who do the volcano. And the guy from Volcano came with Bill. He came to the museum in Sensi Seeds. He needed an investor for the volcanoes. Well, I wasn't really into the volcanoes at that time, and also in the German they needed a lot of money to start that, and then the complication to make a new company and shareholders and
Mm-hmm.
So I said, you know what? I buy the first 50 vaporizers you're gonna make, and I pay them now. So I pay 50 vaporizers in front, 200 something, stuff like that. And Bill's supposed to be a bit in a partnership with this guy. So they're going to sell the vaporizers, and they're going to sell the little ball Eagle Bill's vaporizer, just for a hand. And but it ended up that they had a fight with the guy from the volcano, and he didn't get another dime from them. But he works in the museum a lot, and he was a very close friend.
Yeah, I mean, vaporization was definitely his thing. It was, I think.
I just looked with thought. There's a YouTube thing with Bill and Paris Hilton. You know, he's vaping with Paris Hilton in the museum, but he don't know it's Paris Hilton. I love him. We miss him.
Yeah, for sure. Bill was awesome. My best story of Bill is, someone comes up to the vaporizer and they take this big rip, and it's the one where he's got the huge globe now. It's like 1995 or something, and he's got the heat gun in the top and the big glass. And this person comes and takes a big rip, and literally before even exhaling, it used to get real hot on the top floor of the PAX Party House. He just like broke the glass arm, went down, like fell on the ground, and Bill, without even skipping a beat, yells, because everyone's quiet. He yells, "You see that, ladies and gentlemen? The amazing healing properties of cannabis. This man hasn't slept in 3 days, and only one hit, and he's out. Holy shit, did we laugh." What a character.
What a guy. Yeah, I love him.
Yeah.
Great.
That's amazing that you turned him on to the vaporizing. That's amazing that you were like, hey, you should look into this vaporizer thing.
Yeah, and then you have the guy in Holland with the Verdamper, and
Everett.
But they were playing already with the paint stripper, right? So he's going up. He works in the museum and works with the vaporizers.
I'll tell you that Verdamper is potentially one of the greatest vaporizers for the pure hit that you get.
Nice, yeah.
Incredible. And of course, back in the day,
the guy who sells them is also a beautiful guy.
Yeah, it's Everett, correct?
Yeah, Everett.
Everett, yeah, okay. I would mispronounce his name. Great guy for sure. He used to carry around like a pickle jar on a harness around his body as his portable battery pack. I was like, dude, you are a serious character.
Yeah, he's a character.
He's from Friesland, isn't he?
I'm not sure. Somewhere there, I think.
Yeah, I think that's his area. Very cool, very cool. I'll tell you, it might be time for another rip watching you smoke all those joints and I'm barely hitting anything over here.
You guys, you should look up Eagle Bill and Paris Hilton. You looked it up, right?
Yeah, I just actually put it on my Twitter, HempXXX. When I saw it, I was laughing. Bill obviously has, he no shit's given, Who doesn't care who this girl is? But he's willing to get her quite high. It's quite amusing. Yeah.
And that was the amazing thing about Eagle Bill. It didn't matter who you were, I'm getting you high. End of story. Next.
Nice to him. She was so enamored with him, she videotaped it. It's clearly her doing it.
And he was a Casanova.
Yeah, he would give
it around his finger.
Giving her all day, of course, yeah. That's cute, though. You see her getting high. It's really quite amusing.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you, I'm glad I got to hit many, many times the vaporizer with Eagle Bill.
So we were in the PAX Party House one day, and I walked over to see him, and this guy was in front of me doing the hit of that big, huge upside down light bulb, giant size vaporizer with a gun in it, and the guy took a big hit and fell right over.
I'm just telling you, Mike.
Oh no shit!
Yeah.
All right, then I'm quiet.
No, it's good, man.
That
My
was very.
booth was right next to him that year.
Oh, dude, he was slaying people, dude. And then he didn't know what to do, and he looked around, and he looked at me, and the guy's friends already had kneeled down to help out their friend. And I was just standing there like, holy shit, Bill. And he goes, another satisfied customer, next!
That was a classic, too, yeah. Another satisfied customer.
I literally leaned over the guy who was on the ground and did my vape hit.
I saw once somebody's really vomiting and everything, you know, going out. And he said, this is the museum, the only museum you get higher out than you get in. You know, somebody going.
You still surprise people at the of all places. Okay, so in Amsterdam, you go into the Hemp Gallery Museum, and there's a guy there with a vaporizer demonstrating it.
Yeah.
Demonstrate. It's a demonstration, folks.
Joseph is a good replacement for Eagle Bill.
He's nice. I like
He's
Joseph.
a very
actually.
nice, very beautiful guy.
Yeah, so you use, they use donation, but they use grass. Donation grass just shows up grass.
Something like
magic
that.
grass.
I think so.
And then it just, everybody gets high.
It's legal grass, I think.
What a way to enjoy a museum, huh? You go to the museum gets you high and wishes you well. I love this.
That's the way it should be.
I don't disagree.
Nice that you guys are sitting outside in the trees and the flowers.
It is nice here now. It's a bit summer still, right?
Yeah.
Very
It's
nice.
not so bad.
Did you want to ask anything else, Mo?
Well, let me think.
Couple questions, I don't know.
Everything.
Ben, years ago I gave you a book, a bound copy. Todd and I were talking about this, of hemp patents that was found with a friend of mine. Do you still have that book, or have you played with any of those recipes?
To be honest, I'm not sure. I'm not sure. You know, because I was so bloody hard working with the museum, because we did 2 museums in 2 years, right? The Amsterdam renovation, and one of the big problems for me was books, what to put in there. So, and
This was actually a binder collection of patents, and it was a long time ago, but it was like this thick, and it was all early 20th century, some 19th century. No, yeah, you know, everything that it's hard to really put into perspective the amount of stuff you've collected over the years. I walk through the museums and
well, we all documented it, so we should be able to find it.
That's nice. Yeah.
But you know, my collection was really a collection like many collectors have. It was a mess, you know. And then about 7 years or what more ago, I started to really document it, and it's done now. Everything is done, and we make all scans of all the books, and so we should find it. But it's a big thing, you know, from there, or again also to choose your topics and where does it fit in. But it's very interesting. Thank you again for the donation very much. I'm sure we find a place for it again. And if not me, it's the new generation that find it.
I guess I would like to ask a question about the Northern Light Haze number 5. You were saying that's one of your favorites?
Yeah.
What was it like when that came to be? You know, I'm sure, you know, you were around before it came to be, and then as it was happening, as that breed came to be and you first tasted it, what was, you know, you have a little story about that experience?
No, not much, because if I recall well, it was a plant that Alan and Neville, I think it's maybe Neville's plant. Neville had it, if I recall it well, but Alan knows better. Because we worked already those days, we put all the genetics together with Neville, and we sold it, right?
And what year did you guys work with Neville? Like, what was the...
Wow.
I'm asking all the hard-hitting questions here, Ben.
It's a good question. I don't recall very well.
In the 70s, did you know each other back then, or was it the 80s?
Yeah,
Was it the seed banks that brought you together?
I didn't have the shops or nothing yet.
Oh, so early 80s.
Really.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
I think I met him through Ed, but I'm not sure. Ed Rosenthal.
Oh, really?
I'm not sure.
That would make sense, actually.
Could be, but I'm not sure.
Wow.
And then what year was the Super Sativa Seed Club? Weren't they out of Rotterdam?
No, they were from Den Haag.
Oh,
Named Case. I met him once, I think. Nice guys. They were doing good things. But they also had problems, right? I don't know much about it. I forgot also.
It's a long time ago. We're talking 30 years.
Yeah, also, but it was also a bit mysterious that time. You know, the guys were, everybody was hiding it.
This is literally Sensi's 30th year of being in business, selling seeds in Amsterdam. It's incredible. Yeah.
that is incredible. Congratulations. 30 years spreading the seeds. Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Truly, holy smokes.
Yeah, we've all smoked something that's passed through the Sensi Seed Bank. Everybody listening has inadvertently gotten their hands on something that has your genetics.
Yes. Generations of cannabis users, thank you, Ben. We would not know cannabis without you.
You know, I always used to say from the beginning, we're bombarding the world with seeds in the drug war. You know?
Ah, that's nice.
The drug war is on, we're bombarding the world with seeds. So,
in all honesty, in the 80s, to me, a young grower, you existed in the advertisements as a fairy tale. Like, you know, it's Jack and the Beanstalk. You're going to go get these great varieties of cannabis just that easy.
yeah,
Come on.
You just go.
To me, it seems crazy. No, I came. I got on the plane. I visited. But it took me a minute to realize that that could come true. You were a fantasy. You know, Sensi Seeds, the whole idea of buying strains, flavors.
It was fun. You know, I started in Amsterdam on where we still are, and I had to do it with flower seeds. So I put a lot of flower seeds there, and the cannabis seeds and to see if what the government would do. You know? And then of course they came by and they looked at all the flower seeds, and they saw the hemp varieties. You know, I have them in special package and advertisement, and it was okay. So then I changed it more and more. And the flower seed went out, but I keep this flower seed for quite some years, you know, just the one part because it wasn't sure we could legal sell the seeds or not.
Right.
And
Well, it's interesting to me that you seem to have taken on a diversity and genetics approach where you had a lot of different kinds of cannabis and not just some winners you thought would make you money. You know, you had Afghan ones, you had Big Buds, you had Hazes, you were all over the place, you know.
You know, the interesting thing was Cannabis Castle, Amsterdam, you know, shop there. Everybody from all over the world came, and this is how we met in Hollywood.
Yeah.
I met Jack, and I met Robert Clark, and actually two other people again. But everybody from the scene met each other because they had the same thing going on.
Right. Right, we had cannabis in common.
And now it became an industry. We started with a small seed shop, and now if you see the fairs and Spanish and other fairs, it's like a huge industry. And it's amazing what it can be. Yeah. But you know, it's we're idealists, I think. And
well, you're a dreamer. I'm manifesting some crazy dreams, getting your hemp into cars. You know, you participated in the documentary that I was kind of proud to have been a part of, and it was the Culture High, and in it you make a comment about when you were younger, you used to see the Mercedes drive by, and you were a left political looker, and you didn't like it, and you thought, fuck them, and then years later, now they drive by, and your hemp is in their car. Yeah. And I
Yeah,
think
well-
that's a great accomplishment, you know, for
Yeah, but I like it just to become in the mainstream, right? That
Right.
It's there, it's used, and
yeah.
they
You
cannot-
proved your point.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
you know, Jack, I love the book. I helped edit it since '94, and you know, people that haven't read it should read it. It was very inspirational. It'll get you angry. It'll motivate you to want to do something. And you really proved Jack's point. You really you put your money where your mouth was, and you risk things, and you now have a hemp industry inside of this country where one potentially wouldn't have existed even to this day.
The day that Jack visited the factory was beautiful. You can't see the factory and see the hemp.
I must
It's
have
like-
lost
like
it.
in heaven. You know?
Of course, yeah. It's a dream come true. First time I visited your factory was 20 years ago, and it was astounding to me. You know, when I first was driving, and my focus was on, it's like you said it before, when you visited, was it Thailand or someplace, and you didn't see the cannabis until you saw the cannabis, and then it was everywhere.
Yeah.
And when we were driving down the road, and I was looking at the green, and I was thinking, that's nice, and then then for whatever reason, my eyes focused on the fact that that's all cannabis. And it just hit me like, wow, you know, and then for as far as the eye can see. Hemp, I never saw that before, you know, hemp as far as the eye can see, no. And Mark, you must be able to visit it now in Canada, of course, but...
Beautiful.
Yep, we definitely can since 1995.
Yeah. And it's happening. We were talking to Richard Rose, and he was showing us some hemp varieties that were growing, you know, more like cultivation style for CBD, and the varieties looked really beautiful, you know, and it's funny to see cannabis cross, it's like a cross trainer. It's kind of like, fuck you people trying to separate me. I will have medicine as hemp as much as I have medicine as good weed, and I think it's really kind of funny to see it all working its way out. You know, who would have known 20 years ago that you would be selling cannabinoid for people to use in a medicinal way from hemp that wasn't supposed to have anything other than paper and fiber and protein. It's the irony of hemp in a way, you know.
Yeah.
We were squishing buds in your museum down there in Barcelona, and we were saying, this is, how long have we been making hash? And no one was like, hey, let's squish the buds. And, who would have thunk, you know? Have you gotten to try any of the rosin yet?
Of the resin?
Well, no. What they're doing now is they're squishing these buds, and the oils are express pressing out. And then this is equivalent of what would, you know, the same thing they're trying to make with chemical solvents and/or very finely sieved resins, you know, that melt. Yeah. Mark dabs. He just dabs very particularly pure resin heads that have been collected by an angel.
Yeah, I had some there before last time, you know.
Yeah. Maybe not by an angel, but everything else was totally true.
Yes, it was almost all true.
Right to the angel?
Right to the angel, right to the angel. Oh, Tony says he does use angels. I know it. Tony caught a glimpse of the angel in where were we, in Spain?
You know, I'd like to apologize to everybody else. Usually we have more of a round table discussion, and I hate to feel like the asshole. I feel like dominating this, but talking to you for us is, I think, pretty amazing. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
Look, we're all humbled and honored, man. Honestly, we're just happy to listen because, you know, Ben, you're one of our forefathers. If it wasn't for you, a lot of us would not know our reality currently. So I'm just happy to sit back and watch. So just roll another one and keep talking.
Roll another one. Do the talking. You do the talking. If you have any questions, you ask me, but I like to hear what you guys talking. I just left the green spoon a part of it in my head shirts. It's beautiful. Very nice. Very interesting.
Yeah, he said he doesn't really go to church, but for this church, he'll come. I appreciate
the only church this atheist will show up at, that's for sure, as he stated, and as I will state.
A church inspired by hash. A hash church.
I have a question for Ben. Ben, so you spoke earlier and you said that it took you several years to breed your varieties and to stabilize them and to narrow your phenotypes down before you released a strain. Nowadays, there's just lots of so-called F1 hybrids being made. Breeders and seed makers aren't really taking the time. Have you noticed this at all? Do you have anything to say about that?
Well, it's hard to say, you know, because there's a lot of people saying a lot of things, and by practice you have to figure out if it's correct or not. And to be honest, I didn't look at it because it's you know, how to say, for 10 years I had the freedom to breed in Holland. That is what maybe that is essential of the Sensi seed bank. That I had coffee shops, but that they were actually illegal to buy grass, right? And I didn't want to go to jail anymore because they busted me so many times. And I found out that the law made me possible to grow seeds, and and nobody else knew. So I had legal greenhouses where I did all my seeds, but also the breeding, you know, and I have several, and also like in the cannabis castle. And that gave me the advantage that I really could breed, and all the other people were still hiding their growing, but not me, because I was legally growing seeds. So,
Right.
and that was legal. And all the other guys were growing grass, illegal, you know.
Right.
So, and that advantage that is really that make our company, you know, that for all these years, because we made also the money to go on to do better, and then it was mainly Alan's work with the breeders to go on in the greenhouses, and while I started to concentrate more to the hemp and the museums. But it's still that advantage we had, and we still have a license. That is interesting because there's only a few people having a license in Holland.
Mm-hmm.
And so I cannot do anything wrong. I cannot grow grass or something, but we still have our seed bank in order. And our gene bank is still what we got, and we fill it in with a lot of hemp varieties, like I told you, and a few new varieties as well.
Right. Of cannabis. Right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Hey, I have a question. Question is actually from Nick. He was wondering, what was the most difficult artifact, Ben, for you to find for a museum or museums, and what, if any, you are still searching for?
Wow, that's a good question. That's a good question. Because I still collect, and then right away here in my house I have maybe 6, 7 objects, quite big paintings, and I don't know where to put them anymore. So, but we still collecting it, and it's beautiful to collect, and I have to go on. The most desirable, it's hard to say because I think Chris will agree with me that every time something comes out, I have this old Italian movie that shows how they grow the hemp in those days, and it is so beautiful. You know, I like it so much because you see real people working hard, and you can dream away in the past. It's the same thing that you discover that in Amsterdam you had this. The prostitutes and the widows were arrested when we go to war because they go into what they call spin house, where they have to spin the yarn.
Wow, labor.
Yeah, well, it was prostitutes, and in the same spin house, the noblemen came to fuck. You know, they choose the girls who were taken out of the prostitution, put there to spin, and then they come there. So only the noblemen could go there, sort of a brothel,
right?
You know.
Horrible.
And those kind of things. So what is there? What Shakespeare, you know, the story, or the shaman? It's always something new to discover, but it can be very small, and I can be very happy with it. You know, it's a small Japanese doll that I got, and it's all hemp fabric made, and it is something like wow.
Right.
So it can be all kind of objects, but something missing, I'm not sure. What. You know, we should like to give more and more depth information. Like also Chris had the same thing. You know, we have a very short section of religion, and Chris played a head role there. He's very much there, and with a big poster as well. And we should like to give more information about the ointment oil and all these things. And it is very difficult to tell this story shortly, to people who just visit a museum, and they go in and they within 20 minutes, half an hour, they're out again, because that most people do that. So now we have earphones that they can listen, and so you can already give them more depth information. But it's very difficult because it's what subjects you can stand by, because before we have an average of maybe 15 minutes, people stay in the museum, 15, 20 minutes, and now it's raised already to 45 minutes. That's nice. We can give more information. But when it's very busy, it's not convenient. Then they stay too long.
Well,
and
how long have
we
you?
can talk for days. They listen for days.
How long have you had the audio tour? It seems extremely popular. I walked in, everybody had a little device to their ear as they stared at the artifacts.
Yeah, we have a booklet. We used to have the booklet. What is nice also. Now the audio tour is nice.
It's fantastically informative.
Yeah. But it's always difficult to, and I think Chris agree with me, I always say my next door neighbor, the wife of my next door neighbor, I have to explain something. And the wife don't know nothing. So you have to choose the words how to make her understand what you say. If you say Jesus baptized with fire and cannabis oil, you're nuts, right?
Right.
So, but if you, like we had in Barcelona, Chris, was very funny. We had 3 priests walking by the museum every day because it's a beautiful church.
Right next down the street, yeah.
And they came in. I waved them in. Come in. No. Yeah, come on. There's something about Jesus. And I say, and they came in, and on the poster, I don't recall exactly what. There's one, how do you call that? Verse from Judas, and they're looking at it, and right away the guy took his Bible, looked it up, and in Spanish, he confirmed, the other one confirmed, and it was amazing, So 3 priests were convinced in a few minutes. But how you do that to your next door neighbor to say, hey, there's something there in religion and in the Bible that connects with cannabis, that is always the challenge. So it's the story and the culture and the whole thing of cannabis that is how you teach a child,
Right. Amusingly enough, we're having this conversation on Hash Church in the Barcelona building that you now have the hemp museum, hash hemp museum in, is formerly a church. It was a church, right?
No.
It was not used as a church?
No, it was a castle. It was really a castle.
Oh.
And then they, on the ruins of the castle, they renovated this whole building. They put this whole building.
Right.
It was in 1950. The old wall is still from the.
Does it have like
castle.
Is that a private chapel that's inside of it?
It's a private chapel.
A private chapel, because when you're that rich, you don't go to church. You have church come to you.
Yeah.
Oh, that's nice.
Big historical story, this building.
Wow. So would like a priest show up and be able to deal with these people, and like they could have their own little ceremonies in their own house?
Well, it's actually what I was trying to say is you're talking about documentaries, the Culture High, the Union, and there's so many documentaries. And every time I admire, especially now in Culture High, sometimes people can say it very short words and they can explain undoubtedly.
Right.
Contrite
in their explanation.
And we try to do that for 30-something years, but and if I look,
it's been a long story.
Yeah, but if I look back, it was just now in Dutch, actually, a documentary from 20 years ago.
Yeah.
And then I say the same things as we say still now, So
hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed, but the arguments here and there are really sharpened up. They have improved. But they have more backup also now, right? So we need that. If anybody has collector's items for the museum, let me know. Thank you very much. And I hope you come to visit in Barcelona one day, because Barcelona is really.
Who's smoking? Mark, what are you doing? Yeah, Etienne smoking. Oh, I don't feel so alone.
You gotta remember, there's two Marks.
I know, I'm just looking at you, buddy. That's funny. So how are you doing over there, Mark? I should just call you K. Well, no, I can't call you K.
Call me Dr. Mark.
That's cool.
Doing fine. All's well.
What part of the world are you in?
In Pennsylvania.
I was wondering if you were spending more time in California.
Gonna be coming west pretty soon.
Oh, well, do visit when you do.
I will, absolutely.
How's Holland, Todd?
I'm having a great time. I love Holland. It's always very. It's the best social climate I've ever visited. I've always said.
Even the birds sound social.
The people here are great. Everybody's awesome. I mean, cannabis and the social scene in Amsterdam was really what was probably so genuine to me, because people they shared so much. They shared so much of their knowledge with each other, and were really trying to instigate or enable one another, to be able to do the things they were doing. And I thought that was so fantastic, and it's still happening here on a great scale.
Well said.
Sorry about that. I just got to get out of this room in the next 18 minutes, so I'm going to have to call it a day on Hash Church in the next 15. You guys have 15 minutes to give her a go. Thanks for bringing Ben in, by the way. That was great.
Hey, people have asked me to chime in on something that's going on in California. AB 2366 is legislation that the state is trying to push through. It was all kinds of stuff originally in it, but on Thursday evening, the governor gutted it immediately, completely, and passed it with legislation that said the California legislature shall regulate medical marijuana. So right now we are currently waiting on, we don't know the language. Supposedly the language is being done by the governor's office. Some of the language will carry over or is similar from the previous language. We don't know what it is, and we won't know what it is until tomorrow. Also, we have until the 7th of September in California, so stay diligent. I'll keep you posted via the Hash Church link regarding it, one way, shape, or form. But at this time, that's all it says at this point. So. And regarding initiatives, we support all initiatives. In fact, all initiatives that are currently on can come and gather signatures outside of BPG. We completely support the process for legalization for 2016. So just wanted to state that. Thank you.
You say you want to legalize marijuana?
Yes. In California.
Wow. What about the kids? What are they going to do?
They're like the Dutch kids, going to grow up educated, and when they learn about the good and the bad, then they'll realize, oh, it's not so scary. And as they've learned in the in the other medical states or in the legal states, that, oh, the youth haven't gone crazy for cannabis. So just, again, proving them wrong.
Hey, and I just got a late checkout till 1, so we can keep chatting away, and that way people that came in to chat with us, it won't be a waste. Namely, Khaled, who came in from Jeff Church. He was going to come in and talk a little bit today about CO2 extraction and sort of the footprints that are potentially left behind, not just in that particular extraction process, but every extraction process, which we've been talking about for the last couple of Hash Churches. And I see They even covered it as a topic on the Adam Dunn show recently. So it's pretty cool that the topic is getting covered and talked about, and more people are into it. So welcome, dude. Gotta unmute yourself there.
Hey, how's it going?
Very good, very good. Sorry about the confusion earlier.
Oh, no, that's great listening. Thank you for having Ben here, Todd. That was pretty awesome.
Yeah, talk about your rare appearances.
My rare appearances?
Well, Ben is a rare appearance, but you are as well for sure. This is your first time here on Hash Church, so.
Yeah, so we just run a really small company here in California, and got into it coming from a state and an environment where cannabis just represented something different, and kind of tried to stay away from it. But coming into California about 15 years ago, I had a broken femur, a broken tibia, a broken hand, and people started introducing cannabis in a medicinal capacity to me, and trying to have me eat it, and trying it in other ways, and it just opened up my state of mind to what the capacity for cannabis to heal was, outside of just, you know, the good time. And I always thought of it as like a medicine for terminally ill people, but not so much for people, you know, just as like a wellness thing. I don't know, maybe it just didn't all register, but once someone really introduced it to me in that capacity, and I saw it that way, I grew up around enough people up in Seattle, Washington, and kind of you know, people kind of recreationally do a lot of drugs up there traditionally, and have kind of a looser and a more tolerant consideration towards that kind of stuff. But coming down here and thinking of it in medicine, I really wanted to approach it from a clean point of view. My brother-in-law and partner was the same way, and as we started learning about concentrating cannabis hash, I'm half Saudi Arabian, and have like pictures traditionally of like people in my family who are Bedouin smoking like really long wooden pipes with brass fittings, smoking hashish out in the desert, and so for me, hash has always been like something that's really cool, and this whole thing's really neat for me because you've been an awesome gateway for hash in a more recreational capacity, and then now medicinally. But I went to India as a 19-year-old, and that was the only place I'd ever experienced hash. Someone brought me a large ball of Kashmiri cream, is what it was called, and it was like the stuff that Todd was showing earlier, except for it was rolled in a big ball, but when you broke it off and warmed it up, it was really pure. And so my mindset is concentrates are supposed to be clean and pure, and Ben was kind of joking, like, we all worry about organic and clean now, but before, you know, when it's grown simply, it's all organic, so we're just kind of, you know, circling around. But I like a lot of people, and I hope it's not offensive if I throw it out so roughly, but I got really sold on the pseudoscience of solvent extracts. And when I say solvent extracts, I should be more specific. Solvent extracts in general, but more specifically hydrocarbon extracts, and even more specifically butane and its low boiling point, and a lot of the, you know, just kind of things that are true. But when you leave them just at their face value, and you don't have a chemistry background and other things, you don't have the capacity to understand really what's going on. So we deal with Harborside and a lot of larger collectives, and really try and focus on patient access and treat it as medicine. And as we started bringing our BHO to some of those clubs, we would take them in for testing, and they would fail. And that really kind of drove us to push what was going on here. This doesn't make sense. Everyone's telling us low boiling point, it should all be gone. What's really happening? And so as we continued to play with that, my brother-in-law and father-in-law decided to build a closed loop. And when they built the closed loop, and they just had a simple theory: if we put in this weight of butane, we should be able to weigh what we take out. So they just loaded the machine up with a bunch of butane, and they took the butane out. Once they did that, what they actually found was a whole bunch of clear, heavy petroleum distillates. And this is what we found out later through testing and through a lot of sampling and sending it out to labs. But I know you guys have talked in the past, like, about lubricants. I don't have one in front of me, but really the nozzles and the cans, it's not the issue as much as, and we have Dr. Mark on here, so maybe he can chime in on some of this, because I'm not a scientist. It's really just like I am as far removed from understanding science, but I'm a photographer, and I've always found passion in things I'm interested in, and so as we found that, we kind of came to the community, and my brother-in-law is a little bit more abrupt person than I, and he just was like, this is poison. Everyone has to stop. We can't give this to patients. We need to find out more and see what's going on. And we got a really abrupt response from people. And so we kind of just pursued, and a lot of people now coin the term mystery oil. We started a web page, mysteryoil.org, and a Facebook page, facebook.com/mystery oil. And they just talk about what kind of heavy petroleum distillates are in the places that we sent stuff out for testing. We sent some stuff to an analytical lab in Oregon, California. I think my brother-in-law maybe sent some out to one or two other places. But we list all the tests, all the results. People said that we were lying, so we would go buy a master case and go out in 100-degree weather with a hazmat suit and a little mask over our face, because at the time the environment was much more touchy, and we would just blast like hundreds of cans in front of the camera, and I'd be out there videotaping, and we would just try and just here it is, it's in there, and there's been a lot of pushback about it. And to skip ahead, we threw everything away and abandoned it the minute that we saw it, and it was a little shock, to step away from something that was making us money and that we enjoyed smoking, but we mostly just consume like all organic meat and organic vegetables and don't believe in the food system and the way that people kind of manipulate what they put into people's body anyway. So it wasn't too big of a jump to say this isn't right for us to just put some alien clear stuff. And when it came out, it smells like a tire shop. It's clear and it looks clean, but when you touch it and you put it on your fingers, it lingers for 2 days. It's not something you can touch and wash off with alcohol or with like that orange stuff from the mechanic shop. Like, nothing cleans it off. It just leaves the smell. It gets on your food, gets in your nose. We burnt it on bowls to see what the reaction was and what it looked like. One of the things that has a high boiling point that's in it is called toluene, and it has a boiling point of around 400 degrees. So it may be in trace elements, but part of toluene's MSDS is that it shuts down lung function. So sometimes you take a dab, and we're really we can taste that smell now when we do try a dab here or there, because we are very curious and kind of use ourselves as the testing place sometimes, I guess, to push the limits or see what's possible, and it does. It feels like there is something that restricts your lung function, and so to see that be spelled out on the MSDS, I mean, obviously the cannabinoids and the expansion and everything else, but I mean there are a lot of interesting correlations. But anyway, we left that and went to CO2, and we were actually encouraged by the CO2 company that we were working with to use food-grade CO2. And it was all right, but just because the way we were kind of looking at things, we started off by going to Airgas and to Praxair and just looking like, where are the clean solvents? And the same thing that we did with the hydrocarbons, which are, where is the clean solvent? In hydrocarbons, the cleanliness of a hydrocarbon ends, I think, at research grade, or at least that you can get from Praxair, and so it's 99.99. And the food grade was 99.9 for food grade CO2. So we had our suspicions anyway, but we did try and distill it, and what we found was much, much, much less and not as toxic and stuff that wasn't testing as petroleum distillates, but there is just very clearly a contamination. So we just kind of kept searching for something cleaner, and what we found was there is one solvent that they sell that's extraction grade, and that's SFE grade CO2. It's superfluid extraction grade CO2. And to give you an idea why I think a lot of people don't dive into it, is it's cost prohibitive. If you get food grade CO2, and if the company is telling you feel comfortable with it, but it's $35 for a tank. When you go to Airgas and you get SFE grade CO2, you pay about $435 for 40 pounds, which is a standard size cylinder. So you're paying a lot more, and so companies, I feel like, unfortunately, sometimes, especially in California, they are driven by profit, and so when you've built in your business in a certain way, jumping up to investing that much more, I just don't think a lot of people spend the time. I know Jeff did mention that we distill our SFE grade CO2, but I did want to just make a correction. We have distilled the SFE grade CO2 on multiple occasions to check its cleanliness, but it's actually the only solvent that we've found that's completely free of anything that comes in it. And I'll show you guys this test. But SFE grade CO2 is one of the few things. I don't know if you guys can see any of this, but I'll find it with my finger here. It's 99.9995% pure, but that's a requested purity. If you actually look, this kind of CO2 is one of the few things where they run it through a cleaning process and then they test it afterwards. So it tests for like the moisture, total hydrocarbons. It really just runs the gamut and tries to leave the cleanest product as possible. And when we get the tanks, they're all sealed and wrapped up. They haven't been broken from the factory in New Jersey. This last test I have is from July 2015, so it was just cleaned and tested recently and then sent out to California. It's always tests probably about, if the requested purity here is 5 parts per million, it's testing at under 0.5 part per million for total requested hydrocarbons. And the difference is that CO2 is a singular thing and it doesn't have any molecular close cousins, so separating out hydrocarbons from it is much easier. The problem with hydrocarbons, just the inherent issue with them, is that there's such a slurry of hydrocarbons because of the way that they distill it from crude oil, that really to isolate just a single molecule, a butane molecule or a propane molecule, it's really hard. So you get these condensing heavier petroleum condensate that I guess they gather, and that's most of what you're finding in a lot of the mystery oil. And so not to keep just running on and on and on and on about the cleanliness of the solvents, but that's really where we are now. We're just trying to use the cleanest solvent possible to provide the patients with something that hopefully they can, consume comfortably without it being a variable in their treatment or their care. Because the biggest thing to us is if you've got somebody who's really sick and they're consuming cannabis as medicine, why would you let them consume a variable? We don't know what it is, but we do know it's there, so if they're consuming it, it could be affecting their overall treatment. And I would argue, especially for senior patients, things like toluene and pentane and hexane and a lot of that stuff. It's just, I see a lot of people dabbing with their grandma, and and not maybe in a literal sense, but where seniors are really, being promoted. Here's a dab, take this dab, and a lot of people are just, entrusting us to provide them with something that they can enjoy, and so it's really up to us to not, poison grandma or somebody who has a weakened immune system or someone with damaged lung tissue or just any number of things that we don't really know about our friends when they sit down to have a dab with us.
Yeah, well said. I agree 100% on that. It's it's this sort of conscious thing that you're just are you looking to destroy people, or are you looking to help people in a way that can improve the quality of their life? I choose the latter for certain.
I want to just play devil's advocate for a minute as a guy that rode motorcycles since I was 8 years old, and I sat behind a bus that used to spew hydrocarbons in my face as it would take off in front of me at a light, and I had to grow up going in and out of garages and pumping gas, especially pumping gas. When you're standing next to your car and you're breathing in that cloud of vapor coming out of your gas tank, you really don't think that you're inhaling that. Or I would go back.
You are, but as a producer of a medicine, when you're adding in a contaminant, that's different than atmospheric or environmental contaminants. Totally different. You can't compare the two. I don't think. I don't think that's a fair comparison. We're making medicine.
You know, and I'm not trying
I agree with you.
But we're surrounded by hydrocarbons every day.
But there's people who can't live in LA because of all the disgusting hydrocarbons. There's people with weakened immune systems and damaged lung tissues who have to move out of places that are overly polluted because it's killing them. Those same people look to cannabis as a cure sometimes.
No disagreements in that. But we are surrounded every day with hydrocarbons, and you know, a lot of people.
And pesticides and other things, but we don't concentrate them to. I mean, if I concentrate a N-butane, a 40-pound tank of N-butane, you get over a coffee cup worth of heavy petroleum distillates out of it. Over a coffee cup. So, I mean, I understand what you're saying, but without regulations and clear guidelines, and I'm not saying, I'm not one for regulating one way or the other on a lot of stuff. I do have, you know, beliefs about the way things should go, but I do think that as long as it's a medicine, and in a recreational market, quite frankly, it scares me. We stay away from most commercially processed foods as a family, and what I feed my son, based on the fact that things are, you know, highly polluted for commercial purposes. It's cost prohibitive to take these things out that I'm talking about, but it's not impossible. Yeah,
right.
You're stepping it down for sure.
We've been lighting pipes with these lighters for 4 decades plus, and you know what?
But we haven't been promoting it as a medicine to millions of people
just
who move
taking
to a state.
control of all those gaps.
Yeah, I think it's different when he's not talking about the oil being the bad, or the solvent being the super bad thing.
No, we're not. We're all pro-cannabinoids. I'm just saying.
We're concentrating contaminants. Todd, we're concentrating the contaminants into a concentrate. That's the difference. Light like your lighter with 100 of those lighters, or 500 of them.
I've burned a dab of heavy petroleum distillates, like on a dab, and we've also figured out the percentage, like on, because what you don't realize too is that, like, you guys aren't testing for any of this stuff. So we went to Steep Hill with mystery oil and really like pounded it in on them, but they didn't have the testing capacity to find the full spectrum, and that's why we sent it out to other testing labs. But when we went back to them with a lot of the information, it boiled up to what eventually became pentane coming out at the Secret Cup, which was like this whole, like, oh my goodness, we have this extra like thing in our thing, and screw Steep Hill for telling us. Well,
no, that's not how it was. I was there. That's not.
Well, I mean, I was in their office every day throwing papers and tests and bringing in samples of mystery oil and telling them. I'm just saying, there's still a whole skew of things that I brought them that will be tested for at some point, that will come out. And some people are getting it out. The argument isn't for BHO or not for BHO. It's just clean solvents. That's all I'm talking about.
And there is grade butane, and the stuff in the cans is not as clean, and it's all, you know, this is where we're going with regulation, though. I mean, look at Colorado. They actually get the stuff and they clean it up when they run it. I mean, you know, so if you look at
and I agree. Yeah, you have to clean it up.
And you know, people listening to this, you know, Boulder or whatever, going, dude, down the street I got clean BHO all day. What are they talking about? And I just want to acknowledge that, because you know what, that's reality too.
No, that's fine, but I would still argue whether or not it's clean, or whether or not they're just not testing for the things that may be in it. Some of this stuff has a boiling point at over 400 degrees, and I do fractionally separate off just cannabinoids like the clear or whatever they call it. And when you're doing that, I mean, you have an entourage effect as you get up in temperature. So if you haven't cleaned your solvent to the point that you're getting out stuff that's coming off at a high temperature, then it's coming out with the cannabinoids. And in a simpler level, when you make BHO, the same thing happens. So if someone's running a single pass distillation system, it's not the same thing as running a recirculating pass distillation apparatus for like a long period of time, specifically to clean it. I mean, you can't buy this stuff that clean from Praxair because there's not a big enough market, and it's too cost prohibitive and expensive for a big company like that to do it. So it's hard for me to believe that guys, even with hundreds of thousands of dollars, have the capacity. When we called to follow up about this, I mean, we kept getting pushback because it's so proprietary and it's so expensive, and it's something that's so specific to make such a clean, expensive solvent that they, you know, that it's very guarded. But they don't, you can't buy a solvent higher than research grade. And I'm just, you know, I'm not akin to the idea that I'm a research project and people without PhDs have the knowledge on how to fully distill all these solvents when there aren't standards requiring them to. And that's all I'm suggesting. There's no way to force these people. So you can tell me that it's a clean solvent, but can you show me that it's a clean solvent? I mean, can you show me that slab and prove to me that it's clean?
Yeah, I can. I can show you if it's a clean solvent.
Hey, you're a PhD,
yeah,
though.
I got a PhD. There it is.
Yeah, I'd happily smoke your BHO.
And actually, residual tests are done for all of the concentrates and extracts that are sold at PPG, as far as I know. Etienne?
Oh, I know, but those tests are insufficient.
So
I have a regular testing relationship with those people. I mean, with the same labs, you know, Steep Hill, SE Labs, Sequoia Labs.
Yeah, those labs are just looking for what they know to look for. I mean, you have specifications around what is in the mystery oil, which again are these high boiling hydrocarbons or, you know, branched isomers of higher boiling alkanes that just happen to be in there. Look, you're absolutely right. There is no sizable market right now. And until there is a sizable market, they won't clean it up until basically it's regulated more like a standard food product. When you're doing multiple distillations, remember that any high boilers are left behind. So if you do like 1 or 2 or 3 passes, you know, you could probably almost assure yourself that everything that's coming off the top of those distillations essentially are going to be, you know, 99.999%, you know, just butane. If it is coming off and it's a lower isomer, you know, those are just going to volatilize out of your product anyway. So I'm not sure if the concern is that you have to use the butane after it's been distilled multiple times to make sure that there are no high boiling materials left in the gas before you use it in cannabis extraction. There could certainly be some regulation around that.
Well, and part of my, I fully just want to, like, if I in my personal life, and part of the reason that I understand like the different, you know, levels of what I feel like is sometimes contamination in BHO and isn't, is because as an individual I can make the choice to consume something that has a misnomer and make a judgment on it. All I'm talking about is when we get to the level of providing for patients where we have a brand, a polished brand that looks a particular way and provides to somebody a sense of assurance, there aren't the standards to really assure those people. So in the hydrocarbon realm, I would happily a friend who can tell me how they did something, you know, maybe try something. It isn't the same to me, though, as putting it on the shelf as a branded medicine. And in a recreational market, I think there's more latitude for that. But I think in a medicinal market, and this is just me standing on a moral soapbox because I feel so privileged to have the capacity to be in the environment where I have a business and work with people and have cannabis be my day-to-day life, that I feel obligated to, you know, the 80-year-old grandma who's, you know, deciding to try her first dab, or the 6-year-old who's having this stuff put into an edible that they're eating because of seizures or something. You know, I look at it from as humble a position as possible and try and, you know, as Todd said earlier, he's playing devil's advocate. Well, you know, there's not very often that I feel like in any industry people just play, you know, consumer advocate. And so in this situation, as long as it's medicinal, you know, my opinion is just to err on the side of caution and beat everyone to death with an opinion that, you know, unless we know, the 1% of our community who gets forgotten about at High Times events, who gets forgotten about at every, you know, cannabis social, those people who are really what the laws were written for, who were really why people went out and voted yes on California 215. I mean, nobody on this panel could, you know, pull enough heartstrings to get us voted in for medical in California. It's these people that I'm talking about that I feel obligated to provide clean medicine to, and just try and, you know, make and hold everyone to the highest standard possible, because I just don't think there's anyone out trumpeting that thing. It's like, it's very dismissed, you know, it's clean, it's tested, it's this, it's that, but like you said, unless they have the standards, and unless they're looking for those specific things, it's clean only to a certain percent. It's only as clean as what we're looking for.
Yeah, you know what, Khaled, I want to hear more about that. I have some questions for you and Mark, and we're just going to hear from Ben Dronkers to say good evening, and wanted to thank you for coming.
Khaled, worth to think about. I'd have to say goodbye all to you guys, and I hope to see you next time in the church again. Huh?
It's a privilege to be on while you were, Ben.
Yeah, you're always welcome.
All right.
So, thank you, Ben. Always a pleasure.
So I had a question in regards to that you said the best quality butane you'll be able to get is research grade.
As far as what I've found at Praxair and at Airgas and a lot of the providers here in California is that 99.99 is the highest level of purity that you can get. And a lot of what I'm saying, and I'd be happy to be called on any of it at any point, is all from personal experience. We've invested money into all of these solvents for just cleaning them, playing with them. We make a product that's you know, very terpene rich that a lot of people sell for a high dollar. We sell it for a very reasonable price. We're doing this from a humble position that people have allowed us the privilege who are sick. So coming at it too commercially doesn't feel okay for us. I think in a recreational market we are very eager to try and, you know, recoup some of the losses that we've put in being the good guys or whatever, but it's really just been about trying to get people to focus on something other, and that's why we love you so much, you know, quite frankly, and not to, you know, throw one your way, but it's just because promoting hash has really been where it all started for us, is like it's a clean product, or organic weed, you know, something that people can consume on a regular daily basis, and you know, I mean, we just watched Todd smoke 10 joints with Ben, and if that was like, you know, just concentrated with disgustingness from crass commercialism where we're spraying pesticides and all sorts of, you know, God knows what else, it wouldn't be the same experience for Todd and Ben as them smoking that good cannabis that they're getting. So I look at it from the food, you know, the food realm is so polluted and corrupt that's the way that cannabis has the potential to go. So unless we, you know, play patient's advocate and fight this fight and have these arguments, and I'm not saying, I mean, I like all dabs and all cannabinoids, and I like, you know, old school hash and Frenchy hash and, you know, Cuban dry sift and all the different weird stuff that everybody makes now. It's awesome. It's amazing stuff. I'm purely just talking about from a moral high ground, and I apologize if I'm veering a little. I do feel like I got a little excited there, and I don't want anyone to think that I'm trying to say what anyone who, as an individual is consuming is a bad thing. I know BHO has helped a lot of people too, and for people with stronger immune systems who aren't affected by the trace amounts of pollutants that are in there, it does really seem to you know, help a lot of people.
You know, thanks for saying that, because, you know, I have experienced just that with it, and, you know, extracts have given us the ability. I have chronic neck pain. You know, the little old lady friend of ours, LV Musica, that gets weed from no less the U.S. government, used to come over and smoke all my shit, and now she comes over and dabs, and she's cool. She doesn't have headaches. She'll watch TV. She's content. And to see that contentness on somebody, realizing joint after joint after joint didn't get them to the level of cannabinoid saturation that gave them real alleviation from the medical problem they were pursuing, gave me a different view of shatter, butter, extracts, cannabinoids, terpenes, the mix of it, and starting to look at it from just a matter-of-fact standpoint without prejudice. Because, you know, look, I like my iPhone. I like technology. I'm not against learning new ways to do old things. And to me, that's what's happening. And when you guys started pushing for residual tests, I was really excited because I just was starting to interact with Dan and Jeremy and those guys. And when they dropped those tests, I thought it was the end of the industry for them. I thought people were going to go, oh, fuck. And instead, everybody figured out, oh, gee, neopentane, 94.5 degrees. Crank up the ovens, and away it went. And we all started learning chemistry when, in a way, you know, now it's one of the pursued most cleanest areas of cannabis that we have, because, hey, a lot of people that grow outdoor pot would rather you not test for mold. Now they're not test for fungus because, you know what, outside it's really hard to combat that shit because it's in and on everything around us and naturally, and it's part of our life. We shouldn't fear everything, and we don't live in a sterile environment. And I think some ways, and when you look at the benefits of cannabis in an extracted form, and it's a small risk for a great reward.
Yeah, no, it definitely depends on the individual, and it's why I don't go out trying to make patients feel bad about what it is that they're buying off the shelves at collectives. Really, I guess the only time I stick the hornet's nest is really in these conversations that are with producers, the people who can hear what I'm saying and either take something from it or not take something from it. I don't like to, make a patient feel like what they're consuming and I've had those conversations with people. And I can see how it hurts them. I mean, it's a hurtful thing to say to someone like, this might not be good for you. And so it's not my point to go out and tell someone like if they're getting relief and if they're feeling better from this, that it's not good for them. My point is more to try and go to the producer and say, what can you do? What can we do? What can I do to make the best product so these people can not have, any sort of concern that if they have a headache or they have this, new sensation that they're not used to, that it's not the cannabis, that it's just part of their regular experience.
Sure,
Well,
but those
challenge us as dispensary owners, I mean myself, to actually challenge science, so that I had to go exactly as you did. I had to go and say, hey, what is actually in this, and what is this? So that's why I deal with 4 different labs right now, because each one has to be tested against. They have to be satellite tested, and they have to all come back positive at the same time. Now, none of my product goes to my shelf without it being tested first, so it has to come clean. So
Yeah.
I set the standards, but it doesn't mean that every club's following it. I know Harborside is, but who else is? I hear a lot of problems down in LA. I hear a lot of problems in San Jose. I hear a lot of problem in San Francisco, but I myself, I got turned on to BHO because of my older patients who were using it, and my curiosity was, why are you spending so much on so little, as opposed to, at the time, flowers were 90% of the business. That has completely changed now, where, second after flowers is now concentrates, where it used to be edibles. So it forced our hand to actually go, like you said. So I want to know what's in here, because I know there's sulfur, I know there's residual solvents, because I can smell the sulfur, et cetera, et cetera. And it, as Todd stated, it did force people to learn chemistry. It did force people to push the industry. And out of that, look, we have companies that are making vacuum ovens and pushing the technology, because exactly, we found dirty shit. And thankfully,
and the stuff
others challenge people
cleaner.
to find that dirty shit. But it doesn't mean that we can't always improve ourselves and make ourselves better. And we're better where we were, and we're better today, but we can always do, as I said, better tomorrow.
Well, and I have a, I totally agree 100%. I think that, the stuff that we were, smoking 10 years ago, even 2 years ago, was, 100-fold dirtier than a lot of the stuff that we're seeing today. And like I said, a lot of it's just a moral high ground issue, but I guess also I do see a lot of these young people coming into the industry, people maybe between like the age of 19 and 25 who have never even smoked flowers, and I don't mean that in a literal sense, but where flowers has really never been what cannabis was about for them. BHO dabs from day one, and because it was so amazing, and because it was so interesting, and because it was so much more than anything cannabis could provide them. I mean, when I first got in the industry, I probably spent 3 years dabbing nothing but concentrates coming from having smoked hash and weed, and for no other reason, but it relieved my lungs to some extent. Taking such a small dab, it was great. You take a little dab, and you just, felt like you had smoked a whole joint. It was an amazing sensation. But if these trace amounts of things are in there, and we think about the food industry and other things and all the cancers and stuff like that, and I have a skewed perspective too. My mom's a 30-year practicing respiratory therapist and has always just given me hell about consuming any sort of smoke, and we fought a lot about cannabis as I was younger, and at some point, and to the credit of my mom, she came to me on her own one day and said to me, you know, I want to apologize to you. I've been looking a lot, and I really cannot find anything about cannabis in particular that there's any credence or any science that would say that what you're doing is bad for yourself, but you know, the consumption of hot smoke and the potential to, you know, inhale pesticides and toxins and things like that. So, you know, with the mindfulness of consuming something that's clean and having some sort of filtration or mindfulness about the way that you're treating your esophagus and your lungs and the rest of it. So though I look at these young kids as if all they do is dab until they're 50, are they going to be the, you know, the first trial patients of new diseases that we've never heard of forming in the soft palate and the esophagus, and you know, down into the upper brachial part of the lungs where a lot of this expansion happens with BHO real rapidly. And is it, you know, forcing extra, because that's the difference too, like the lighter, it passively goes into your lungs, but when BHO expands, I mean, there is something different happening into the way that it coats and pushes the cannabinoids. It's such an immediate high, and maybe it looks like Mark is still here, Dr. Mark, but
it's also it's a psychedelic that's produced between the lung and the brain. That's the trigger. That's the fascinating part that we can't study, that even Mark can't study, because it's in the humans currently, and it's what we're experiencing, and it's that high. And I think that's what amazes a lot of us is we've all gotten high off of really kind bud, but the first time we've hit BHO is like, holy shit, this is a whole other level of what the fuck, Batman. So it's really that kind of way of where we really knew that you couldn't really get that high. So I'm fascinated as when Dr. Shulgin, was very blessed to have Dr. Shulgin, Anna, and Sasha at BPG, I think back in '04, and they came and they spoke to us, and who spoke to the fascination of the chemical compounds that happen when we ingest them and how we ingest them. And so when we ingest them through the lungs, something is created in our own bloodstream there's a carrier, but there's also something that's created nonetheless. So I agree, there is something that is happening there that we don't understand, but I think we have to have human trials to really understand that. Am I correct, Dr. Mark?
Yeah, absolutely, because a big part of it is like individual body chemistry and how our bodies are different and our tissues are different and how each of us metabolizes these molecules differently. And yeah, I think that immediate rush that you're getting with BHO, it's kind of like filling a coffee cup with a fire hose, you know? I mean, you're immediately saturating everything that's in the system. Whether the trace molecules that are in BHO or could be from butane contamination affects that process or not, I'd be more worried about chronic effects. But remember, a lot of that is sort of getting trapped in the mucosa anyway. So if there's any sort of foul molecules in there, a lot of those are going to be trapped and expelled. I would be worried more about chronic effects of persistent molecules, and those are the fluorocarbons. And so fluorocarbons are often used as corrosion inhibitors, especially in tanks and plumbing that handle corrosive gases at the refinery. And so my concern with mystery oil is there fluorochemical material in there, because that poses two different hazards. One being that when a lot of those are heated up, they generate hydrogen fluoride, which is a very potent acid, very, very strong acid that you do not want to be breathing deep into your lungs. And the other effect of fluorochemicals is that typically they're biologically persistent, meaning that they hang around, they don't get metabolized. So those compounds, if those are in the mystery oil, then that can be problematic. Some of these higher boiling hydrocarbons that Khaled was talking about, I'm not sure that poses an immediate threat, but I would think, again, for chronic users, you may not see the effects acutely, but chronically you could certainly see effects of having stuff in your lungs that just shouldn't be in there. Non-volatile, higher boiling hydrocarbons shouldn't be in your lungs.
And just to throw it out there too, I mean, for us it is like a total mindset. So I mean, I understand that we do approach it from a different point, but I also think that's why the Bay Area in particular has, you know, really led the way in a lot, because, you know, I mean, whether it be silly hipsters or, you know, people like me and my family who like to go to the farmer's market and get some organic vegetables, or, you know, whatever it is, there's just always now this turnaround towards, you know, trying to be cognitive of what you're consuming. And I think there's been a real big push in every industry to, you know, create sheepish behavior where we kind of blindly follow rather than having any sort of, again, just cognition towards what it is that we're, you know, putting into ourselves. And I applaud places like, you know, BPG and Harborside and Magnolia Wellness, who are, you know, they're forcing people when they come in, not to just show them some incredible in some of my personal experiences at like Harborside and Magnolia Wellness, they take product from you if you have a trusted relationship, but it's still sent out for testing before it ever hits the shelf. And when they see a new customer, or I mean I apologize, a new vendor who's gardening, they always make them leave a sample and come back in a week whenever the test comes back, and it's what dictates the purchasing. I mean, it also still has to look good. It has to, you know, have great bag appeal, all the same requirements we've always had, but now they're requiring that scrutiny be there, and it's really what drives me. I mean, if the clubs are doing it, they're our conduit to patients, and we have to, you know, provide that product that's that clean that then they can go back to the lab and say, you know, because I go in as a producer to some of these labs, and I have an account and we've put a lot of money down for testing, but it carries no weight in the comparison to what a collective can do when they go in and say, you know, this is what we want. I don't care if it makes sense to you, but this is how we want you to move forward. And I think for a lot of places it had to slow business for a little while, and maybe you can speak to that specifically for BPG, but I know some of my friends and some of the, you know, smaller things that we were a part of, you know, testing has always slowed us down compared to other places. The fact that we have such high standards, I feel like, doesn't allow you to have the turnstile business that people who just will take anything, you know, it's all just purely bag appeal. And that's how we got sold on BHO. I mean, half-hour flips, you know, at 60 degrees to leave the terps, or what is just bag appeal, you know, and you just turn them in. But for us, it always limited it by having clean stuff. And I don't know, at a big place like BPG, do you even feel that, you know, when you push those things, or?
Oh, absolutely, because I mean, everything is tested for its. On top of that, we see 30% of what we see, and because of that, you know, that's the reality of the market. I'm very fortunate that we have a lot of patient cultivars in California. And also I have you know, I'm getting ready on 16 years here. I have a 16-year reputation, so I mean that helps as well. But the reality is the city of Berkeley has made its own standards. And because of that, everything has to be tested beforehand. So that went into place already, and all the other dispensaries in Berkeley have that. And that's one of the things we've pushed through for, such as in Berkeley, we have a thing called the Berkeley Medical Cannabis Commission that we fought for back in the day, and it's appointed by the city council people, and they actually regulate us. And so with the law that passed allowing for the 4th dispensary and the regulations that this new 4th dispensary in Berkeley is that they had to follow what the other ones were doing. And so they literally listened to what we were doing. And we don't have anyone on that board. We used to until they changed the law in 2010, and then they became all appointed by the city. And so we were already complying. And the thing is that I have to turn down a great deal of people. My purchasing patients are, as I teach them, it's the art of disappointment, because we see so many people. We're disappointing more people than we are making happy. And as you said, you can talk to me all you want, but you're coming back a week later, and it's what the tests say. It's actually around 72 hours. We're getting it better with the different labs that we're doing. But, you know, that's the reality. And you can tell me all you want, but the cannabis and the science are telling me otherwise. And so once we get past that science, then we can open the dialogue of talking discussion. So the standards have changed considerably from 10 years ago to even a couple years ago, where it used to be, hey, how's it going? You know, it wasn't until 2007 that, you know, Debbie, who's over at Magnolia, and I were wondering, all right, what is in our cannabis? We want to really know what's in this stuff right now. What is actually, what is this stuff? What's in here? And so we found Steve Hill. We found these other people. And fortunately, we now have other labs and other people, and we've been able to do satellite testing because these other labs couldn't do it. So fortunately, there was Halent. Halent was these guys out of, you know, UC Davis that were testing for Central Valley and doing all the tests for UC Davis. So here we're dealing with people who were experienced in pesticides, herbicides, who had a list of 20 to 30 that we could immediately screen for. And so it helped open up and broaden the science. So again, it's because guys like people like us, like Harborside, people like Magnolia, who are taking the opportunities, and we're putting our money where our mouth is and investing in the science, because we know the science has to be there. Because if we don't have it, how does the patient know? Because I'm a patient. I'm a patient, have been. I'm a Gulf War veteran. You're Saudi? Love you. I served in the Gulf War. Okay, so I scored hashish when I was in Saudi Arabia, and it was some of the finest Lebanese hash I've ever had. So great love, great respect. But as a patient myself, I was given 5 years to live for a while there because of how the reality of Gulf War syndrome was. I was exposed to nuclear and biological chemicals because I was a combat and I was involved in it, and the Iraqis left. I mean, everywhere we went, there was rounds, nuclear-tipped rounds everywhere. And I had to heal myself. So myself, I had to heal. And so out of that, I've always challenged myself as a patient, because I get tired of making criminals out of you and you and you and you, who are my friends, to medicine that I needed. And so out of it, it's always challenged me as a patient to know what I'm putting inside myself. So thank you, Khaled, for also challenging yourself, but challenging the industry and challenging the others in the industry, because you're right. That's the only way that I could affect was through my business, through BPG, and by uniting with Harborside and uniting with Magnolia and these others. By forcing people to these changes, change happens. And what we know as change today, it's going to change, and we're going to have stricter standards. That's what 2366 and that's getting ready to regulate.
Were you one of the Clean Green founders?
We have to regulate concentrates in California in a way that you say that's safe. And unfortunately, we don't have that, and people are blowing themselves up and hurting themselves. And that's why I'm glad there's so many other ways like rosin and water hash that are out there and available for people, so that they don't have to blow themselves up, they don't have to hurt themselves, so that there are alternatives, so that we can show people through the science as well as we learn and understand how to help and make ourselves better, so that I can know that I'm providing the best medicine for my patients, because I don't need any more deaths on my conscience. Okay, I got enough from my war. I don't need any of my patients dying from being sick. So thank you for challenging us, and continue to challenge us. And I challenge you all to continue to push us to do better for you, because we're here for you as patients. We listen to you because we want to know. So thank you.
And were you one of the first people who signed your collective up for Clean Green?
No, Clean Green wasn't. No.
And I know it's not something that really holds any credence now, but just in regards to what you're saying, though, the industry has continued to evolve, and it's been great to watch. People make good efforts and keep trying to push things forward. So we're just trying to continue in that tradition.
So Khaled, the majority of the labs are not testing for these mystery oil compounds?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I just know from, our own personal experiences of taking high concentrations of pure mystery oil where there was no cannabis to interfere with the testing, and the explanation that we got from a lot of places was that they don't have the standards, and so they don't have the capacity because of those limitations, and it's understandable, and so that's why we continued to push. And really it wasn't until we got to Sunrise Analytical up in Oregon where they have other analytical experience, so they had access to a lot more standards, and they were able to give us at least these 12 initial ones. And I don't know them all off of the top of my head, but I know that we keep them up to date on the Facebook misdrill thing. And well, and the only reason too that I brought up, clean green is that we do though is like an ethos, try and do everything that we're doing clean and organic, and we participate in clean green. And I wouldn't say it's a great program, but it's also not a horrible program, and it's all about just providing consumers with a peace of mind, and also trying to make a good effort. And I wish there were more people who would provide an option where it's not necessarily government regulations, but it's a group of cannabis-minded individuals, whether they be industry leaders or scientists from the industry, but people.
2366 is going to allow for organic certification, I am told. You cannot quote me on that, but from what my understanding is that one of the main things is to finally allow for organic, because no one can use, and why he's talking to clean green is because we can't use the term organic, people. If you put the term organic, you can be fined, what is it, $2,000 per actual printing, because it's an actual thing you have to go through. So that's why we've never used that term organic, because we realize and we're told by them that they will sue us, and that's the reality. So hopefully out of this, at least people can get that organic certification, which will be a challenge in itself for, the Organic California Association. But I think that growers would welcome it, because they want to say that they could uphold these standards. And I would love to be able to say to my patients, here's organic, because you know how many people come in asking for organic, and I have to go through this same story of actually stating is that, well, can't usually actually the term organic. We use the term bio, outdoor, we use the term sun-grown, because we can't use organic because we will be sued by the Organic Food Association for the actual use of the term. So hopefully out of this, and again, I don't know what the realities will, but one of the main discussion points was the allowance for organic certification for cannabis gardens, which I think we can all agree would be a great step forward for a lot of our patients and a lot of our cultivars. Mark, you're mute.
Yeah, I was telling Khaled he needed to unmute himself, and I was on mute telling him that. So, search moment.
I was just, curious if you knew any more about the AB266 than I did in regards to. I know since they gutted it, obviously no one really knows anything about what's going on. But I know in a lot of the legalization jargon that's going around for 2016, a lot of things are requiring for everybody who's involved to have prior city approval for what it is that they're doing, and to be in a space that also approves that. And so I don't know if with these, with the medical regulations coming, obviously the medical industry is just a boutique industry at this point. So, how do you think that AB266 will affect even like your capacity to get things like concentrates, where a lot of people are having to, use warehouse spaces or get leases, but maybe don't have approval.
This is the only city in the entire state that has its own health department. So I could have a regulatory. We've been working with people who are working on actual regulatory kitchens, so that bakers can come in and have an actual space to actually a regulated area, so actually to manufacture and produce. Same thing for, I have had various different producers of various types of extracts who have come to me and said they want to build labs here in Berkeley because of access of that type of department that will allow for that. Okay, so for me, fine, but that's only 3 of us currently and only 4. All right, I could see Oakland as well for its 8. Okay, it will protect them. But the rest of the cities, how many other cities? We know of over 150 different municipalities now in California who have passed laws against dispensaries. Okay, so they don't have access to it. Patients don't get access to it, so the patients lose out. You know what sucked? Way back in the day, I used to have patients have to come from San Diego to me to get their medicine. That's fucked up, people. you don't realize how far it is. That's almost a 9-hour drive, driving straight. Just to
That's
get
what AB 266 looks like to me.
And its previous form was bullshit. So I'm concerned about where it goes in its current form, because that type of jurisdiction blackballing puts patients decades back. They don't have a chance. They don't, and that's the problem with the police that were actually crafting this, is that they want to keep it out of where they currently kept it out of, as well as the insurance agencies, because they don't want to end up paying insurance for this. So this is big money against these people. You don't realize what's really going on behind the scenes, but there's multiple industries going behind the scenes, including the prison lobby, which we all know is the largest. Of the lobbies in California. Okay, and if you don't think they're not going to come out guns blazing against us, we're kidding ourselves. They came out semi-hard against us last time because we didn't come out hard to the paint and with 19. And from what I'm hearing currently, it's a clusterfuck still currently for 2016, and no one has anything that has brought to the table that is a reality that we can all get behind. People have some token ideas and some utopian ideas, but the reality and where the rubber hits the road is not going to end up with the signatures or the backers, and I hope that changes. And that's why the legislation in California is currently being pushed through so fast with AB 266, is because the legislature knows that in 2016, or they have the idea that legalization is coming down the pike, and if they don't do something now, they've missed the boat. Because they were also given this when 215 passed in 96, almost 20 years ago, that they had to actually regulate cannabis, and they haven't. And the only thing that they've passed, as you know, pretty much was what, SB 420, which turned out to be an accidental. Why that number was what it was. It wasn't done on the purpose of 420. And now what they're currently trying to do now with AB 266, which is keeping us all in the dark. They haven't come to us and consulted with us. We have no idea what's coming down the pike. So I'm afraid. I'm nervous. I have no idea what I'm going to be subjected to. But I'm already self-regulated with my city. So to go to your question, where do I feel? I'm safe. But that's because I work hard with my city. I have worked with them for 16 plus years and have educated them along the way. And I realize that's also part of my goal. I can't just sit back with my little castle and go, bah, ha, 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 everything is great for her. No, I have to go out there. I have to be active. My people have to be at events. We sponsor events. We have to be active locally. You have to get with your city council. You have to go to their fundraiser. You have to get on the phone. You have to go to the events. You're in the Chamber of Commerce. It's real business, people.
Well, you know, the unfortunate thing, though, is, places like where we got pushed out of the Central Valley, and, a whole unfortunate thing that happens there is, we went to the legislature, people rallied downtown, but when it's 20 of you, and the whole state doesn't understand that, as those judges are making those judgments, those are what are defining the gray areas in our law and leave us at the place that we end up. And you're right. We've really been a Bay Area brand for a long time with the stuff that we produce, because it's been the most patient access. People they go there from everywhere, so you can trust that if patients are what you're worried about, you go to the Bay Area to deal with those collectives, because it's a desert in most of the rest of the state. And I see something like AB 266 with what it had as far as being able to vote out municipalities on their own agenda when it's a state voted law to be able to have medical cannabis, but letting individual municipalities, and that's what most of the legalization framework looks like, is the same thing, where they're going to allow for dry county, wet county type scenario.
Well, Khaled, that's been tested at the California Supreme Court level. The California Supreme Court has deemed that local municipalities, due to the previous law, can do that. So unless we craft the law that's going to do that, I don't see the legislature doing something about it. Again, because it's crafted by the actual police as well as other lobbies. They want to keep it out of where it's out of. And so, unfortunately, California law, even though it was and how it's written, it's been challenged at the California Supreme Court level, and I completely agree with you. Unfortunately, we don't live in that reality.
No, no, and I agree. And I see 266, though, as hopefully a call to action for everybody towards legalization. And you're right. I mean, the only way to really make anything is for, us who produce to, scrape together some money and go to some of these political events. And I've tried to, go to legalization rallies and donated to, a couple of them on behalf of our business, not even knowing exactly which one is the best one, but trying to find out as much as we can and then go there and try and, shape the conversation and go and convince whoever it is who needs convincing that hopefully, they consider everybody, people coming from areas like the Central Valley, and really try to champion getting rid of verbiage like that. And I think it's easy. I mean, I think that delivery has been around as long as it has, even in these dry county areas, because it's, this short passage, these tiny knots, that allow for patient-to-patient access through things like, fair and equal or fair and equitable exchange for cannabis, or other things that got formed in SB 420 that kind of, resecured the idea of delivery. But I don't see a lot of people involving themselves, except for people maybe on levels like yourself. And I don't know. Do you see a lot of people who are coming in just dealing with you as far as vendors, having any questions about what's going on, or even aware that this kind of stuff is coming down the pipe?
Well, we're active, so we talk to our people, and our people talk to us, fortunately. So that's the reality of us and being an active. I've always been an activist. I've been an activist since I got involved with Debbie and Ken back in 92, 93, 94, For me, it's always been about education. So usually whenever our next to our purchasers, there's usually a jar for some sort of, benefit or sort of situation, as well as it's an active conduit of discussion, because we're patients. We try to also stay up on what's going on, and we get a lot of active feedback. So, but at the same time, we don't have huge amounts of lobbyists up on up on Sacramento, We can only do so much in the reality, and it's not like this legislature or, vendors who are coming in and, hey, what's going on? How's things going? What's things been going, We've invited them to come, and some have actually come and, toured through, and when they actually see medical cannabis and what it actually looks like in the proper environment, they all go, oh, wow, this is totally different than what I thought it was going to be. But we can only do so many of those, and fortunately other those around are doing the same, but we don't all have the time now. I mean, this one's got till the 7th of September, and they're going to push something through, so strap in. It's going to be a bumpy ride, people.
But do you think that any legislation in 2016 obviously has the capacity to correct or override anything that happens through AB 266?
Absolutely. Really? That's reality. If they give an open-ended it allows for functioning and for that change, yes. But I've heard of everything from a new tax that's coming down the pike, for a tax for medical cannabis. And the SBOE has been through that whole test case, so I know because I was that test case. So I've heard also that it's going to allow for delivery throughout the state in even municipalities that have outlawed. There's a rumor. I have not again seen actual paperwork, but again, we have pretty good rumor channels. Those are supposedly in there, but I don't know if it's also going to, like the previous version, force mandatory unionization, which I'm against. Sorry. I pay living wage, I take care of my people well, and my people don't want union. But some places have union and deal with union, and that's fine. That works for them. But not everybody should be forced into mandatory unions. I think that's a tad unfair.
No, I totally agree 100%. I think that, the way that you guys are operating in the Bay Area, quite frankly, has been an inspiration for us, coming in the Central Valley. And we had a small collective a long time ago, but even though we operated under legal framework and did all the right steps to create ourselves as a collective, we still had to operate like a speakeasy because of the environment and the way that the laws were written and adjusting down there. So it's it's great to hear that you at least feel like you guys are relatively insulated from things up there, because at least if they're somewhere in the state, you know, it gives somewhere for growth. But I do think, you know, the more we can crack the whip at the people who are who are in the position like me to get up and hopefully get involved in some sort of real legalization, you know, verbiage, the better. And I'd love to talk to you more sometime, because I'm actually up in Sacramento now, kind of, you know, with the goal of trying to be more involved. If I couldn't be in the Central Valley, being close to somewhere where I could be, you know, more active seemed better than not.
Please reach out. We'd be more than happy to.
Well, you know what, guys? You know what, guys? Great search, but I've got this hotel room in about 7 to 10 minutes, so I'm going to have to call it a short one here for 12 minutes to or 10 minutes to 1 o'clock. Thanks everyone for coming out. Definitely enjoyed having you, Khaled. I'll make sure that you get an invite another time so we can talk a little bit more. And Etienne and Jeff and Mark and Tony, who we didn't get to hear much from today, appreciate you guys coming and making an appearance. And of course Todd, with really the special Ben Dronkers Hash Church. That was amazing for him to come in and answer all those questions and be a part of our little thing. We sure appreciated that. He is someone that we all have looked up to over the years. And thank you all, the thousands of people that watch Hash Church each week. We really appreciate it. And keep watching. We'll see you guys all next week for episode number 50. 2 weeks away from a year after that. Peace.